What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights, where me, your boy, EJ, does 2 live streams per day. This first one, 8 a.m., later one, 6 p.m. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of topics to get into because NBA talk is heating up. And it's kind of what happens simply during the All-Star break, All-Star weekend. We start to have these kind of larger macro conversations about the league. The last 2 days about, the state of the All-Star weekend. I definitely gave you a lot of my thoughts on that. All-Star weekend is this weekend, by the way. And, preparing for the show, and maybe we'll do some more later tonight, but I was like, do I need to really get into, who may win these competitions, who's in these competitions anymore? Do people care about this? There was a time where people did. Now, just the way the All-Star game has kind of become such a joke, and the All-Star weekend it's become such a joke, it's kind of hard for me to figure out if that's kind of the right time for me to be wasting time doing that, So maybe we'll talk more about the actual festivities happening at All-Star weekend a little bit later, but we talked a lot about the army of influencers that are descending on Los Angeles to get content and capture all the events. And I think what that means for just the NBA's efforts and desperation to get eyeballs and get viewers and hopefully generate some money for this thing, because the All-Star game certainly has taken a big tumble. And then yesterday, really, I think, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be, differences of opinion. And that doesn't mean that everybody's right and everybody's wrong. But I do think a healthy conversation about just how we're commentating and analyzing the lack of competition in the All-Star game and how we're comparing that to other sports and who we are putting the brunt of that on, and is it fair to put the brunt of that on the American players? And that's something that was a big topic on social media yesterday. I certainly dived into it last night as well. Like every episode, of course, you can check out all the episodes on our podcast network, New Generation Podcast Network. Night 24 is already up there. Of course, day 24 is already up there. Yesterday morning, we had Andrew Bogish in here, and that was very exciting. No guests this morning. You have Kendall later today. But this was a crazy week of guests. You had Perloff, you had Keith McPherson, and then you had Andrew Bogish. You have Kendall Fridays coming up. So this has been a fun week for guests, and it's been a fun week of shows. And we're staying on the topic of NBA kind of macro conversations, though it is somewhat of a micro situation because of what the NBA did yesterday, where you had the Jazz and the Pacers both being fined for manipulating their rosters in a way that they thought, and the NBA thought at least, questioned the integrity of the game or compromised the integrity of the games that they had played. Ironically, the Jazz had won the 2 games that they're being accused of and taking a $500,000 fine for. And the NBA had pretty strong words about how they're going to attack tanking. And Shams Charania was reporting some wild ideas in terms of how the NBA plans to potentially tackle tanking. So we're going to talk about those ideas and plus these fines. We're also going to talk about what happened down in Mississippi. I could not believe how many cameras were there, and it seemed like this Trinidad Chambliss eligibility court case was being streamed and recorded. We were getting tick for tick, all the details about what was going on, what the NCAA was saying, what Trinidad Chambliss was saying. You get videos of the testimonies. I was like, whoa, this looks like this looks like the OJ trial. What? It's just a kid trying to see if he can play college football. But obviously in Mississippi, it's a huge deal because he is, if he does come back, probably one of the Heisman Trophy candidates for next year. And he was granted eligibility. So we'll talk about what that means for Ole Miss, what my thoughts are on him wanting to essentially duck the NFL so he can play more college football. And in that court case that happened yesterday, there was a comment made by a former NFL coach that is still mind-boggling, that I still can't wrap my head around, that I think does speak to what is sometimes the rock-headed nature of sports that we need to root out. We'll get to what Joe Judge said at this testimony as well. It had nothing to do with Trinidad Chambliss. I don't know quite why he said it. It didn't seem like he was asked specifically about the topic. But we'll break it down, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. And finally, shout out to Zach Gelb. He got a pretty big scoop, it seems like, this week. We got to get Zach Gelb on the show. And there may have been conversations about times and dates that may happen. But Zach Gelb had a former Colorado Buffalo skewer Deion Sanders on his show this past week. So we got to get into those comments. We got to get into all this stuff, man. It's 40 days, 40 nights, day 25. Rocking with you here as we enter Valentine's Day weekend. We enter All-Star weekend. Hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you guys are set up for a great weekend. I'll be on the fan for my Valentine's Day. As you heard my interview with Keith McPherson, which again also is on YouTube and on, of course, our podcast channel. I'm working Saturday night. So we'll find something to do probably during the day, or maybe we'll do something later today for me and my fiance. But I'll be on the fan. So if you don't got anybody to snuggle with, or you don't got a date, I could be your sports date for the evening. Check me out on the fan. I'll be on from 7 p.m. to midnight. So that should be a really fun show, getting in, talking all about the start of spring training, NBA All-Star Weekend, where the Knicks stand. It should be a good show. So make sure you lock in on Valentine's Day as well on WFAN New York, where I'll be hosting 7 p.m. to midnight. So not necessarily the late overnight shows I've been doing. Some of y'all probably don't want to wake up at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. to catch me. That's fine. You don't have to. You can catch me at 7 p.m. That's going to be a barn burner and a beauty of a show. So 40 days, 40 nights. Thank you guys for watching. Let's get it going. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube, New Generation Media. If you're watching on X, make sure you subscribe to me and of course follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. If you're there on IG Live, shout out to the folks who be watching me on IG Live. Make sure you follow me on there, Action EJ. And of course, like I said, make sure you subscribe to the podcast channel as well on wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get it going. Let's talk about these NBA fines that were levied yesterday. So the Indiana Pacers and the Utah Jazz were fined each for what the NBA is calling manipulating their rosters in a way that compromised the integrity of the games that they are being accused of this of. So the Jazz fine, which is for $500,000, stems from two games. They had games on February 7th and February 9th. They were wins over the Magic and Heat when Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. were benched for the entire fourth quarter. Now, if you remember yesterday, we talked about Jaren Jackson Jr. last night because it was announced that he would be shut down for season-ending knee surgery for a procedure to remove a growth from his knee that he is admitted that was not giving him pain. He had been playing fine. Nothing was wrong with him. But no, he has to get the surgery right now. Like I'm telling you guys, we won 2 games in a row. We won one of the hottest teams in the NBA the last 2-3 games because we had Jaren Jackson, even though we've been benching him in the fourth quarter. Sorry, guys. He's got to go out. He has to get this procedure, even though he's been playing totally fine and he's had no issues, and he says that he's not hurt. But they had to have this surgery, so he's getting this surgery. I assume the surgery is real. I don't think they're faking that. I think they are going to have incisions and all those other things. But a growth in his knee had to happen right now. You could not have this happen in a couple of months or even a month later, maybe when you really say, okay, maybe shut him down because you don't want to risk injury moving forward. He had to have this right now. He had been playing well, and the Jazz had saw that, so they were like, hey, let's not play him in the fourth quarter, and maybe we'll lose these games. Let's see how this goes. Not only him, but Lauri Markkanen, who's totally fine, and he had a rest day yesterday for a guy who's going into All-Star Weekend, who's in the prime of his career. It's not Joel Embiid we're talking about, a guy who has, knees the age of an 80-year-old man. We're talking about a guy who's had basically no injury history. Lauri Markkanen needed a rest day prior to the All-Star game where you're about to have a week off. Again, it speaks to just like the brazen nature in which the Utah Jazz are operating right now. Those guys have been benched in the fourth quarter for both of those games. Games that were in the balance. This is not, the team is getting blown out, they're getting blown out, and they just say, all right, we're calling off the dogs. No, they're in a tight 2-score game, 1-score game kind of situation in terms of 2 possessions, 1 possession, and fourth quarter begins, and those guys are MIA. They might as well have sent them to the locker room. So they get fined for $500 for that. The Pacers were fined for sitting Pascal Siakam and 2 other starters in a February 2nd game, ironically, against the Utah Jazz. Again, this season has become a tank-off between the Wizards, Jazz, and the Pacers. They're like the holy trinity of tanking. All different kind of philosophies, different opportunities, but tanking nonetheless. They sat their all-star and 2 other starters against the Jazz because they were also trying to lose. And a league investigation found that the players were healthy enough to play, even if they played in reduced minutes, and that if they were going to give them rest days, it should have been spread out compliant with league rules. Now, you may remember, though, actually you may not, because they implemented these rules and then it kind of went away, or we don't really talk about it anymore. But in 2023, the NBA actually put in, quote-unquote, player participation policy, which was supposed to limit tanking and limit load management, whereas you couldn't rest guys on 2 games in a row, and you couldn't not play guys in a national TV game. Like, there were all these different rules that were in place and to try to help tanking and help the lack of the rise of load management. But the NBA, and then there was an idea where there were going to be like NBA, I don't want to say independent doctors, but there was a policy where, like, if there was something in question, the NBA could question the injury and they could look into it, which I guess is what they did with the Pacers. And they found this is BS. Like, these guys should have played. You just said you sat up for no reason. So again, these teams look at this NBA draft that is loaded with talent. I know Caleb Wilson of North Carolina just broke his hand. We don't know when he's coming back for the season, but he's put together a remarkable season that's already going to essentially guarantee him a top 5 or 6 spot in this NBA draft. He says he wants to come back, and hopefully he does, because he is one of the most electrifying players in college basketball. But you have a draft that's loaded, the best since 2003. If the Jazz are hell-bent of keeping their first-round pick, since it's top 8 protected, and if it falls outside the top 8, they would have to give it to the Oklahoma City Thunder. You have the Pacers, who have traded their pick to the Clippers, but remember, they're in this weird zone where if it's 1 to 4, it's theirs, but then also if it's like 10 to 15, it's theirs. So they're in this weird strike zone where they're trying to make sure that they're not giving up a top pick to get this to the Clippers in the Ivica Zubac trade. They want to make sure they ensure that they get this top pick. So these teams are doing everything they can to make sure they find a way to lose these games by, quote unquote, playing the young guys and seeing the rest of our roster and essentially throwing the season. And the NBA has had it. David Stern had some pretty harsh remarks in terms of how he expects to approach tanking. I actually want to read those remarks too. I know Ian Bagley had it on Twitter. Shout out to Ian Bagley in terms of the Adam Silver and tanking. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. But it feels like this is not becoming like, oh, we're kind of turning a blind eye to this. I think the NBA is getting very serious about this. So here was Ian Bagley's tweet from yesterday. And he quoted Adam Silver in a statement that was made by NBA Communications. Silver says, quote, overt behavior like this that prioritizes draft position over winning undermines the foundation of NBA competition, and we will respond accordingly to any further actions that compromise the integrity of our games. So that suggests to me that not only will they act accordingly this year with potentially more fines, I don't know if there's any other stronger penalties, like could a team forfeit their first round pick? I don't know, that seems very extreme. But it seems like the NBA is putting the warning shot out there now that you have to cut this stuff out or we're going to start bringing down the hammer. That also tells me that I think they're also looking at what they're going to be doing for next year. That if y'all think y'all going to get away with this year and this is going to be how it's always going to be, think again. We're going to come after you guys really hard next year, and we're going to have a entirely different setup for how the NBA lottery works. I think everyone is saying that something has to change. We've gotten to the point now where and I think it's almost uniform. I think if you ask all basketball observers and NBA fans, I think maybe people even within the league, that the NBA lottery as it is currently constructed is outdated because there's too much of an incentive to lose. And we talked about this, and I broke this down yesterday. It just doesn't make sense if you're a team that is bad to try to put together, the best team possible to maybe be the 10th team in the West or a play-in team. Like, if you have an opportunity to get a game-changing player, especially if you're in a smaller market, the best way to do that is to be really bad, win this draft lottery, and then get the number 1 pick. And the best chances you have at winning a draft lottery is having the worst record. even though they flattened the odds, even though they tried to make it a little more even though like the evidence has shown that like being in the top 4 now just definitely does not guarantee you the number 1 picks. We've seen so many number 1 picks recently that fell well outside the top 4. Dallas Mavericks were well outside the top 4. The New Orleans Pelicans, when they got Zion Williamson, were well outside the top 4. The Atlanta Hawks, well outside the top 4. You would think after seeing that, maybe these teams would not be so brazen with this, but the numbers are still the numbers, and the math is still the math. Those teams that are worse have a better chance at getting those picks. So they're going to keep doing this. It's not going to stop. So it was interesting to hear from Shams Charania because he had some reporting and details that I had actually not heard yet. He was on NBA Today, and you got to hear this from him regarding some of the talk that's been happening behind closed circles about what the NBA needs to do about tanking. These ideas apparently stem way back early in the season in November.
It's an increased topic, an increased conversation among the stakeholders in the NBA, from owners to league office executives to team executives and the player side at the NBPA, and finding ways to combat tanking. And it started all the way back in November and December in the wake of the gambling scandal that happened right before the start of the season. And the 3 ideas that came to fruition early in the year that the league office came up with was here, limiting pick protections as one solution, possibly not even allowing teams to draft in the top 4 in consecutive years, and then maybe another idea being locking lottery positioning after March 1.
Okay, so let's break that down. Again, these ideas, locking lottery positioning, these are all ideas that I talked about in November, right, as the season was starting because of the gambling scandal. Remember, Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones and Terry Rozier were all indicted as part of a federal investigation into gambling, illegal gambling. As part of that investigation, you will remember the Blazers part of this. And it's ironic because this part of it, Chauncey Billups wasn't indicted for. I don't know why. The only thing I think was maybe because he cooperated as part of this. But there was an admittance that he basically told, I think it was Damon Jones, hey, like, you know, Dame's not sitting because we're trying to get Wemby. So Dame's out tonight. Go bet against us, essentially, because we're probably going to lose. So they said that happened last November, and the NBA had meetings. The players union, the executives, owners said, hey, like, this is not good for our league, obviously, that, like, you have coaches, you know, tanking and then giving out gambling information to various different folks prior to Vegas being able to adjust lines and do things like that. That's essentially fixing games. So the NBA, this was the graphic. This is ESPN's graphic while Shams was talking. So I want you guys to kind of see so you can kind of grapple with what he was saying. So these were ideas in November. These ideas got more extreme in January or a couple weeks ago when they did this again. But the ideas that they had included, so you limit pick protection, which is what we talked about a ton, and I've talked about, is that has to go. You cannot have these things where it's like, oh, we're top 4 protected, or we're top 8 protected, or we're top 10 protected, or top 6. Or again, this weird Pacers pick where it's like, we're like, I think it's 1 through 6, but then also 10 through 14. It's like, now we have this little strike zone where like if the Clippers can somehow get the Pacers to land in like the 7 or 8 zone, they get the pick. But now it's like, it's just bizarre. I said, we got to get rid of this because now you're having teams looking at their standing and saying, oh, just being a bad team is not enough. I can't be a team that just misses the playoffs. I got to be a team that is in the bottom 4 so I can keep my pick, or the bottom 6 so I can keep my pick. So that is going to incentivize even teams that are already bad to even be worse. And potentially, I think we've seen with the Wizards, trade guys away for guys that are injured that you're not going to play for. That now you're not going to play with, like Anthony Davis and Trae Young. So that's one side of this. Then also the not allowing top 4 teams to get top 4 picks in consecutive years. So that's another thing where it's like, hey, like you can't have some of these teams that are perpetually tanking, essentially, to try to stack rosters because they have no other recourse to build their teams. And they also had the idea of locking lottery position after March 1st, essentially feeling like, hey, if we just lock your spot in the lottery at a certain date, maybe at that point in time, we won't have these months and months and months of teams tanking. I don't know if the last 2 really matter. The first one, I think, would definitely be something that they need to do. It would help certain things. But the NBA is now seeing things, and they've actually gotten a lot more creative about some of the ideas that they may need. They had another meeting just a couple of weeks ago with the competition committee. When I talked about this because Brian Windhorst had some of this reported, but now we're getting some details about some ideas that emerged from that meeting just a couple weeks ago on how to curb tanking.
My understanding is there have been even more meetings. There was a competition committee called about a couple weeks ago with owners, with team executives, with players, that all discussed even more ideas. And 3 other concepts that came in those calls were a tournament among teams that essentially play for the top draft picks. Whoa. Another idea, teams can't pick in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals, and then possibly lottery odds being allocated based on 2-year basis, not just 1 year.
So now this is more extreme, right? Like, especially when you get to the idea, and I put up the ESPN's graphic one more time so you can see this. Especially when you start talking about a tournament. I mean, a tournament among the trash-ass teams in the NBA to determine who gets the top pick. And that's been the headline that's been grabbing people because it is definitely the most unique idea in terms of how to combat this. This idea that, hey, like, it doesn't matter how bad you are, you're going to have to be good in the NBA draft lottery tournament in order to get the number 1 pick. So the tournament idea has gotten a ton of compliment, a ton of traction in terms of people talking about it. My impression is I would assume it's the least likely of the scenarios, but it's certainly the one that's the most interesting. But of all these ideas, Shams says finally last one from NBA Today that these ideas could be implemented as early as next season.
These are some more ideas they're continuing to discuss, and I think between now and the offseason, figuring out when you can land on a solution to enact starting potentially next season.
So I think the NBA draft lottery is going to be drastically different for next year. Like I don't think the NBA is messing around with this because I think it's the fever pitch on how bad the tanking is right now is too high. I think this is maybe the worst it's ever been. So I think the NBA is going to say, listen, what we've done, we tried things, it's not working out. Abbottsover, wakes up out of his coma to come out and say, oh, this tanking is kind of bad. We should stop this. So I'm like, yeah, bro, it's been bad for years. If you do your job for once, you could have been ahead of the curve and not behind the curve, which you always are. I made the case simple. I think you should just flatten the odds. I think it's the simplest solution. I think if every team who missed the playoffs say they have a 7% shot, will the teams that are like near the top of the thing make a tough decision about, do we want to be lottery? Do we want to be a team that's in the play-in tournament? I'm sure that's going to be a conversation, and maybe there's a way to fix that. Maybe you get rid of the play-in tournament. Like, maybe that kind of solves that, where you don't have so many teams that are in this position where maybe you're talking about only 1 or 2 teams that would be trying to make that call. But that would be my first solution. The other solution would be to just, you'd have to just get rid of the lottery. That would be probably the only other thing I can think of, is that you can't have this be the incentive for teams to get the number 1 pick, or no, rather not really get rid of the lottery, just put every team in it. That was my second solution. It's just all 30 teams in the NBA are in the draft lottery. That would be my other solution, because now you really have no incentive to be like, oh, like, we were bad, we have an opportunity to get a top pick. No, now you have to actually try to find a way to build your team without relying on this, silver bullet of the draft lottery and hopefully getting the number 1 pick, and that where you can get your Victor Wembanyama or your Cooper Flag. To me, those are the only options. Only options, in my opinion. These other options, I mean, let's break it down. Like, let's talk about the tournament idea, because that's the one that everyone loves. I think it would be fun television, which is probably why it caught some traction in a meeting. I think there are some flaws with it, though, which is, what I think about is, why, if I'm an NBA player, so let's take a team, for example. Okay, let's take the Pacers. They're a great example. If I'm Pascal Siakam, and I'm a team that's competing for a championship, and we kind of have a roster that's kind of set, yeah, I could see that team saying, yeah, we got to go, all those players being on board with trying to win an NBA draft lottery tournament. But if I'm one of these teams where these are guys that are scrub players and guys that, you know, are kind of hanging on for dear life in the NBA. Do I really want to win a draft lottery to figure out, I need to play hard in this tournament so that this number one pick in the draft can come in and take my starting spot? Like, the problem would be, would there be incentive for players to compete hard in this thing? I don't really know if I see that. I do like the idea that you couldn't just purposefully like ruin your roster, because that's the new vague in vogue thing right now, is you have these teams that for 1 year are ruining their rosters. Like the Wizards are the example, where you're taking, we'll make these trades, we'll trade like rotational pieces for our team for a star who is quote unquote injured and can't get out there. So therefore you're already a bad team, but you're getting rid of guys that actually play minutes for you and that you thought enough of that you were starting. You're trading those guys for quote unquote stars that they're not playing. So now you purposefully tanked your roster. And if you had a lottery tournament, the Wizards would be screwed if they were in a situation where we know Anthony Davis is done for the year and Trae Young is done for the year. And then you got to go out there with, you know, Alex Sarr and a bunch of scrubs and say, all right, now we got to win a tournament in order to get the number one pick in the draft. They will be in a tough spot. Same thing with the Jazz. Same thing with the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies made a trade where they traded Jaren Jackson. They weren't, you know, obviously trading a guy who, they weren't obviously, you know, trading for guys that were hurt. But like now they're going to be a bad team for the rest of the season. But in theory, you probably want to keep Jaren Jackson because you're like, well, I want to keep him because even though we're not winning anything, I want to win this tournament at the end of this ordeal. So that part of it, I like. I just think the other part of it is just, again, if you're a player, why do you care? Why do you care if your team gets a number one pick? You may care about winning a championship. You may care about certain other things. It is essentially the NIT of the NBA, and the incentive for the team is, well, we get number one pick, but for the player, it's, well, we're going to get a guy who probably will take your job. There's a ill point guard in this lottery, and you're the starting point guard for the Utah Jazz. Like, obviously, Keontae George's not going anywhere, but you know what I'm saying. If you're one of, like, you're cooked. You're cooked. Like, why am I going out there giving 100% effort for a team that's trying to replace me next year? So it's the most unique idea. I don't think it's the idea that makes the most sense for what the NBA is looking for. So I would not go that route. The other ideas they had here, let's go to the January, February ideas. Lottery odds allocated based on a 2-year record. I think that invites more problems than they already have. I would argue that teams will have no problem tanking for 2 years. I think the thing is, well, if you identify ahead of time, oh, this draft is the draft that's going to be good. Like, you'd have to do a kind of galaxy brain tanking to make that happen. I'm telling you, these NBA scouts, they're watching high school games. Like, they're at high school tournaments. They're at high school events. I know it can be hard to judge that, but we knew that this draft class this year was going to be ill for 2 or 3 years. We knew this. If you're in NBA circles, if you watch basketball, if you watch high school basketball, you watch college basketball, we knew this draft class was the one. Now, we got to see it play out. Like, their draft classes we thought were great that ended up being terrible, or a bunch of freshmen we thought were going to come in and light it up and didn't. So it's not like it's a silver bullet, but a lot of people thought this was going to be a great draft class. So now, like, what is stopping the Nets from saying, yeah, we'll tank for 2 years if it means we can get Cooper Flag, who's a generational prospect, or Victor Wembanyama, who's a generational prospect, or these other guys in this draft that you realize, oh, this draft coming up in 2 years is going to be good. So, I mean, yes, it's a little tricky, but I don't know if that really solves anything. Now, the top one is just the Pacers rule. That's the Pacers rule where you're saying if you make the conference finals and you have unforeseen circumstances happen to you, you can't get a top pick because the Pacers have an injury. That's the only reason why they're near the bottom of the NBA, because Tyrese Halliburton is hurt. This is also, I guess, even though the Spurs didn't make the conference finals, this is also like the Tim Duncan rule, where the Spurs were a great team. David Robinson is out for the season because of an injury, so therefore they go into the tank, and then they add Tim Duncan to then put themselves into championship contention, right? And it's not a bad idea, but that is a kind of a limited situation. It will probably also kind of like maybe be a Thunder rule too, because the Thunder are in a position with the Clippers pick that maybe that would also say, hey, they're not a team that can just win the finals and then, oh, we got the number one pick. Oh, there you go. So that seems like a little more of a silver bullet with specific teams that are there. So I don't know if I quite, again, I'm fine with it. I think it's a fine rule. But that seems to be more specific to the actual Pacers than really anyone else. That doesn't happen all that often. So the other rules they had here, again, the early ones, which was limited protections, I think that's fine. Not a lot of teams top 4 in consecutive years. I think that's fine as well. And also locking lottery position after March 1. I've heard some other things. I've heard the idea of locking lottery position at a time that nobody knows. Like, say, determine before the season, we're going to lock the lottery position at X date. And you have no idea when it's going to be. It could be March 1st. It could be January 12th. It could be December 5th. Like, you just have no idea. It could be any point during the NBA season, and that's when it's locked. And teams can make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, don't matter, but we can lock it there. I still think if teams identify early enough that there's a draft that they want to make sure they have a top pick in, I think they'll just lose as much as they can in hopes that they can get that pick. They'll just tank to start the season. I don't think teams will have any shame. So that I'm not sure works as well. Stopping the thing at March 1st, I don't think that works either, because to me, March 1st, that's usually when guys start getting shut down anyway, because now you only got about a month and a half of the season left. So I don't think that's really going to stop anything. I think teams just now, not forget about tanking. Yes, that's part of it. But it's also, hey, like, we're not going to make the playoffs, and we have this young player or this star player who, has a knick-knack injury. Like, we don't want to risk him going out there hurting himself in meaningless games. So they should start pulling guys regardless. And I think most NBA fans understand that. The problem is we've seen these guys getting pulled in January and February. It's ridiculous what's happened this year. So that I don't think really works. You have to do it at a much earlier date. So this is a tough spot, man. It's a tough spot. Again, I've made my presence and my opinions known. I think that flattening the odds is the best thing to do. And if you still have people saying, well, I'd rather be in the lottery than make the playoffs, then you just say, all right, then everyone's in the lottery. That would be how I do it. And you can do it multiple ways, too. Like, the way I thought about it when I thought about putting everybody in is you put everybody in, but maybe the playoff teams have a slightly lower percentage than the teams that are out of the playoffs. So there's a little more advantage to those teams, but not the advantage that you would expect. And if you have 32 teams, we did the math yesterday with the 7% chance. Let's do the math for this. So if we put in the calculator, because I'm definitely not no mathematician, as you guys already know. Do 100 divided by 30. That would give everybody a 3% chance. So maybe you say, okay, for the teams that missed the playoffs, we'll give you an additional 1.5%. So you'll be at, this is 3.3. So you'll be at near 5. And the rest of the teams, you'll be at 2. So 2% for the playoff teams, 5% for the non-playoff teams. If you're a team that is trying to make the playoffs, is it worth saying, I want the 5% over the 2%? Like, I don't think it matters at that point. I don't think. Again, maybe I'm being naive and say, nope, those teams would say, I'll take the 5% and the opportunity to get the, Cooper flag. Maybe. I don't know. The teams that have the 2% chance would have a good shot as well in this landscape to get the number 1 pick in the draft too. So that's what I would do. I'd flatten the odds and say, okay, let's see what you guys do with everybody having the same odds. Oh, you don't want to make the playoffs now? Okay, everybody's in the lottery. And I think we get rid of this. If you put everybody in the lottery, you will not have people tanking. Because then there literally is no incentive to tank. Now the question becomes, well, are you now screwing with the competitive balance of the game, of the sport? Short answer is maybe, but I think it being so random, you still would have teams get lucky and get great players. Teams that maybe they're not the worst team in the NBA, or but they would still be teams that are not that good. Or, for example, think about the Hornets this year, or think about the Blazers, right? Like they may make the playoffs in the Western Conference, but they're not some great team. If they got the number 1 pick, and be like, all right, cool, wow, the Blazers got the number 1 pick. That's crazy. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh, we gave the number 1 pick again to the Knicks or to the Thunder or to whatever. Like, I don't think it would be that big a deal. There are only, I think, to me, probably 10 teams out of the 38. Like, oh man, they got the number 1 pick. That's kind of unfair. Everyone else, I think you'd be like, oh, they're not that great. They could use a star player. So that's my rule for tanking. That's my ideas for tanking, let me get in the chat. Let me know what ideas you may have for tanking. I think that there are a lot of different things they can do, but I think they gotta be aggressive with this and the NBA knows it. I think they understand this assignment, that this has gotten completely out of hand, and if they don't do something about this, then they're gonna lose it all. Like, I think they're gonna be in a situation where the regular season, which is already a joke, just becomes just like, for a lot of NBA markets, a slog. And at the end of the day, they care about those games, because there could be an argument to say, okay, what difference does it make if, like, your Wizards and Jazz game over here is being played in a weird way where there's tanking and they're doing weird stuff? Like, who cares for teams that are out of the playoffs that we don't even care about? Well, the problem is, like, the TV revenue is real, right? Like, so the revenue for local markets is real, which we've already had issues with local markets, and a lot of them have to close down because of financial issues. Revenue from local markets is real. Ticket attendance is real. Like, that's real money that, if you're saying, hey, those teams are not only they're not bad, they're not even worth watching because you're going to be watching a bunch of scrubs. That does hurt the NBA's pocket at the end of the day. So I think they were okay with certain tanking and certain machinations, but what's happening now, where if you're, again, a Jazz fan, or you're a Nets fan, or you're, again, a Pacers or a fan, or a Wizards fan, you're talking about you've basically watched tanking basketball since December. Like it's been, as soon as the season started, those teams were essentially out of it. So you're tanking almost immediately. That's a lot of games where your ratings are in the toilet, where attendance is in the toilet unless LeBron shows up, or Wemby shows up, or Steph Curry shows up. Like, that's a lot of money being lost. And the NBA, of all things they're willing to accept, they're not willing to accept losing money. That will never be the case. So I hope that they fix this thing, man. And I like, as this is not good for the league that this is happening, but I am excited about the idea of something radical happening to the regular season. I think maybe this is one of the things where we needed something like this to happen, for something to really, like, spice up the regular season, because it's like that line from Rick Ross saying we had to destroy before we elevate. Like, maybe the Jazz and the Pacers and the Wizards are doing us a favor, where those teams are being so shameless with their tanking that finally we got to put some real stakes in the NBA season that will make this thing a much more watchable product. And I feel like the things are there for them. Like, I don't think that they're doing this NBA regular season the way they're doing it, but I don't think they're in a position where it can't be more extreme and more radical and more fun. I talk about the in-season tournament. I keep saying, I don't know why the in-season tournament isn't for something like a draft lottery pick. That, to me, seems like clear as day something that everybody be invested in. If you get a lottery pick or a top 7 pick for simply winning the NBA tournament, best believe that even those bad teams are going to try to win. Best believe even those good teams are going to try to win. Like, that incentive changes the entire landscape of what has already been a pretty successful venture. Again, who's to say you don't have certain tournaments, certain things, because Adam Silver loves tournaments, right? There's certain parts of the NBA season where certain things that are based purely for the draft next year. Again, we don't have to do this lottery thing. We can evolve. We can advance this thing. We can do so many different things in the NBA regular season to make it more fun. I think the one silver lining about all of this is, I think whatever they will come up with, well, I don't say whatever they'll come up with. I think there are some things that they can come up with that I think will be more fun. I mean, I like that they're thinking about a tournament. I don't think it's the greatest idea. I don't think I would try it. But I think, that's the kind of outside-the-box thinking that we need to fix this. Because this is not just even an NBA tanking thing. This is just an NBA season thing. Because we can talk about the tanking teams, and they are a culprit. But it's also the very good teams, too, where you have players who are sitting out all these games during the regular season because of load management. That also is a problem. And by the way, like I always say, it's not these players, man. It's these teams. These teams are the ones that are saying, hey, we want to keep you fresh for the playoffs, so you're going to sit out for a game or two. Like, that's how this works. Players, most of the time, they want to play. That's the reality. So the NBA has a challenge in front of themselves, and I think that this could be really the moment that makes or breaks Adam Silver's tenure as commissioner. Like, is he going to be able to fix this thing? I think Adam Silver has done a poor job as commissioner for many years now. I think it's been a while since I've said that Adam Silver has been doing a good job with this league. I think he's been doing a miserable job. But he has an opportunity here. And it sounds like he's taking this seriously. My question, though, is will he have enough support from the owners to do something radical? Because at the end of the day, he works for the owners. So the Jazz and the Pacers and the Wizards are clearly totally fine with this philosophy because they're operating this. There are plenty of other teams that aren't doing the brazen things that they're doing, but are still tanking, like the Nets and stuff. Like, how, can you get enough votes to pass something like a radical change to the lottery? Those are things I would question. But it's definitely an interesting topic, man, and they got to fix this thing because this is getting out of control for sure. We haven't talked college football in a while, but we got to because I think yesterday kind of ended up being dominated by one Trinidad Chambliss, who is going to return to Ole Miss this year. There had been this back and forth with him and the NCAA. He was trying to get this 6-year of eligibility to return to play college football at Ole Miss, and he was denied by the NCAA. He sued the NCAA to figure out that, hey, I think my rights are being infringed, to find out if he could eventually come back and return to college football. And he won. A Mississippi judge ruled in favor of Chambliss, allowing him to return to Ole Miss. The judge agreed with Chambliss that the NCAA did not act in good faith by denying a medical waiver due to what he says were respiratory issues that Chambliss dealt with at Ferris State. That's the D2 school he was at before he got to Ole Miss. And he testified about these respiratory issues he had. His mom testified about he lost all his weight. He was only 175 pounds, and he wasn't physically able to play. Trinidad Chambliss said that his coach had said that he was going to be medically redshirted because of the issues that he was dealing with. Now, the NCAA argued that their documentation showed that he could have got surgery to fix these respiratory issues, which would have obviously sat him out completely, and he did not because he wanted to be available for his team, even though he did not play in 2022. So they're saying you didn't get surgery. You sat there and you were second string or third string or whatever. And maybe they didn't want to put you out there, but you were available. So how can you say that then you need a medical red shirt? You can get a normal red shirt if you don't play any amount of games, but you dress and don't play. Like, I think if you don't play 4 games in college football, you can still get a red shirt, even if they didn't officially red shirt you. You say, well, I didn't get any snaps, I didn't get any burn. They don't let you just waste a year, which I like that rule. He's saying I didn't play that year, even though I may have already used my official red shirt. This should have been a medical red shirt. Judge ruled in his favor, so he wins this thing. So Trinidad Chambliss comes back to Ole Miss. You can't say enough about how much of a massive win this was for Ole Miss. The fact that they were kind of putting all their eggs in this basket makes me feel like they knew this would probably be the result. And that's great for them because this is a team that I think definitely is going to be in flux. Like, you're talking about a coaching staff that's going to be different without Lane Kiffin. I know you still got P. Golden there. He's their new head coach, but the offensive staff is essentially all gone. So that does make this thing interesting in terms of Chambliss's insistence on returning not just to college football, but to Ole Miss, where we see guys enter the transfer portal and take these opportunities. He seems to have a very special bond to the school. It's kind of odd because he's only there for 1 year, but it seems like Ole Miss has embraced him. He has embraced everything that is Ole Miss, and it's a bond as if he's been there for 4 years. So it didn't matter that Lane Kiffin left. It didn't matter that Charlie Weiss Jr., his offensive coordinator, left, that he was going to stay at Ole Miss regardless. I still feel like this whole situation is weird, and I don't think he's still being advised the best in terms of what is best for his future as a quarterback, if being a pro is something that he wants. This, to me, is probably the most brazen thing I've seen of a guy ducking the NFL to go back to college. Because you have some guys where you're saying, okay, I'm a number 1 pick in the draft type guy, like a Peyton Manning or a Matt Leinart, right? Those guys say, listen, I know there's some risk, but I got some unfinished business, and maybe I want to go to whatever team is the number 1 pick, so I'll go back to college for another year. Again, Dante Moore. We've seen some of those examples. We haven't quite seen the flash-in-the-pan guy who jumps in out of nowhere from the transfer portal, has a great season after not even starting the season as QB1, lights it up in the college football playoff, becomes the talk of the college football playoff up until his elimination, is now looked at as a guy who his physical traits suggest that he probably shouldn't maybe even be drafted, or maybe not drafted at least in the top 4 or 5 rounds. Now they're saying, hey, this guy is like a fringe, maybe day 2, day 3. If one team really likes him, maybe even day 1 guy. And that guy saying, no, I have to get an extra year. I need to get a 6th year. I need to get another year of college football. And this is where the NIL effect definitely kicks in. Because Chambliss is likely probably a 2nd or 3rd round pick, I think, if he would have entered this year. He would have probably made more money at Ole Miss this year, which is where he's going to go this year, than he would being a 2nd, 3rd, or definitely 4th or 5th round pick. So he's looking at it and saying, I can get more money playing college football while I go to the NFL. I argue, well, you're 24 years old, or you're going to be 24 years old by the time you play another college football season and everything, we do all this whole story selling and dance again next year, you'll be 24, going to be a 25-year-old rookie, and that hurts your draft stock. Like every year you're older, and they can pick apart your game, and they can look at all your flaws and say, this guy's 24 years old, still playing college football, and he has all these flaws and all these things about him. That hurts your draft stock. So I think you're hurting your future earnings by continuing to say, I want this money from Ole Miss right now. So I think that aspect of it, I think is silly. I do. And I also think that goes to be a major risk. Like, this is not Matt Leinart. This is not Dante Moore. This is not Peyton Manning, where a guy that, like, he's got all these physical traits. Whenever he steps in the NFL, he's going to be given a top 10 pick. Like, that's not how this is going to work for this guy. He's going to have to go out there. He's going to have to have another phenomenal season to make this happen for him, where he could be a potentially first-round pick. And there are so many things potentially working against him. You don't have Lane Kiffin. You don't have Charlie Weiss Jr. You don't have the same coaching staff. You're going back into an SEC, which we know is a gauntlet. There's no guarantee Ole Miss is back in the college football playoff. There's no guarantee that Ole Miss is going to be one of the top 10 teams in college football next year. There's no guarantee that Trinidad Chambliss is going to have this amazing, phenomenal season like he had this past season. He could run into injuries. He could run into all different kinds of problems. And that's the risk he's going to play with going back and then coming into an NFL draft where he's going to be 25 years old. I just think, I know money is the root of all evil, and that's the reality of this. As Joey Bad says, he says money is the root of all people. But I think, again, it's a little bit like, oh, here's the money here now, and therefore this makes sense now. And I don't think he really sees what is coming up for the future. Now, one of the things that was brought up in this case was Joe Judge being here, which has been infamous because of what he said about fathering as a college football player. But he argued, he was there to testify as a former NFL head coach, that because Trinidad Chambliss only had 1 year of starting on the D1 level, that most quarterbacks who only start 1 year, the numbers bear out that they don't perform as well when they get to the NFL, which is true. It was interesting. I don't think he's probably doing it just because he wants to get Trinidad back, but it's to hear an NFL coach flat out say that, or former NFL head coach flat out say that that's the thinking the NFL teams have. It confirms a lot of things that we believe and we talk about. But at the same time, this is not a guy who's played just 1 year. He's not. He's played more than 1 year. He played 1 year at Ole Miss, but he played at Ferris State. He won a national championship. This is not a guy who's a 1 year starter. Now, he played, again, it's D2, but he still played. That doesn't not count because it was D2. So the fact that the judge took that into consideration, that, because the idea was he had to prove that denying him this waiver was going to give him irreparable harm. And one of the things they wanted to argue was, by not letting him play a second year, you're actually hurting his ability to be a success in the NFL. And that was one of the arguments that they made. But I'm like, he's played college football. He's been a starter for multiple years now. He's not, first year we saw him playing in the SEC, but he played college football. Now is D2 or FCS football, does that not count moving forward? Like, guys can say, hey, listen, I know I played in the FCS, but that doesn't count. Give me another 4 years of eligibility. Like what are we doing here? So and then beyond just the nature of, I think, Chambliss looking at this and not seeing the forest through the trees, and why I think this is kind of a mistake here. I think just for the nature of college sports, I don't want to see 24, 25-year-old guys playing college sports. Like, when I was in college, and I went to a commuter school, so there actually were a lot of people of all different ages or whatever, but the college experience is about youth. The college experience is about the idea that these are young adults that are entering the adulthood and their adult ages, and we can enjoy the fact that they are kids. I think that is a part of it, at least for me. Can't speak for everybody. Maybe you're the kind of fan, which I've said a bunch, and I said this about these guys when they were transferring, trying to go from the NBA back to college basketball, that we may be just this detached from the situation where we may say, listen, are you wearing Carolina blue? Are you wearing Duke Royal blue? Are you wearing the UCLA light blue? Are you wearing Crimson Tide crimson? I don't care how old you are, where you're from. I'm going to root for you nonstop. It's not going to matter. And maybe that's the case. But I just think with these rules, we're pushing the envelope of like, I don't want to see these guys at 25 years old being difference makers in the college football playoff or the NCAA tournament. I think that's not. I don't want that to be a thing that becomes a strategy. It's like, well, they're an old team, so therefore they won. It's not that they're actually that good. It's just they're older, they're more mature, so therefore they're playing against teams that are playing 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and that's why they win. I don't want that to be a part of this. I want there to be some level of an even playing field. And the reality is because the NIL money it has become somewhat of an equalizer, but I don't dig this being the end-all, be-all potentially for how teams actually win. It's simply you have the oldest teams, therefore you're going to be the champs. Guys that you're lucky a guy got injured for a couple years in his freshman and sophomore year because now he has eligibility at 23 or 24 years old. Like, that's just corny to me. It's just lame. I don't like that aspect of this sport right now. So I don't love it at all. Shout out to Trinidad Chambliss. I'm sure this makes college football more fun next year. Ole Miss, now you have to say, definitely one of the teams that are contenders for next season. But nothing is guaranteed. Like, we thought LSU was a lock to contend this year because they brought back Garrett Nussmeier. They had Brian Kelly, and they had this pretty good year last year. And then the bottom falls out, and Kelly gets fired. Garrett Nussmeier, who we thought was going to be a first-round pick, is now going to be lucky to be a day 3 or day 4 guy. So what we say on February 13th doesn't really matter once the whistle blows and they roll out the football. Like, what is it? Keontae Scott from Miami always says, too much talking on the net, do it on the field. We can talk about how exciting it is today that Trinidad Chambliss is back, but we don't actually know what that Trinidad Chambliss experience is going to actually be when he steps on the field and plays for Ole Miss this year, because college football is unpredictable. There's some teams they think are going to be incredible, they expect to be title contenders, and they flop. Clemson this year is a great example. Think about what we thought about what Cade Klubnik was going to be, what we expected from all these different teams that were supposed to be near the top of the college football food chain that fell apart. Cade Klubnik was talking about potentially being a number 1 pick in the draft. Clemson was looked at as a team. If you look at the all ACC team that was then for the preseason, for the 22 guys, I think they had like 11 guys, 12 guys, something crazy. People thought Clemson was them. And they were completely fugazi. So, like, that's why this whole thing is with Chambliss. I'm like, that's why I think this is a risk. I'm like, you have no idea if you're going to come back next year. And this is going to be better for you. You're going to be a better player. You could end up being worse. Cade Klubnik probably wishes he entered the NFL draft. He came back for who? For what? To get his brains beaten in because the offense stunk. And they lost all these games. And now people... his stock actually took a plummet as opposed to being on the rise. Garrett Nussmeier probably wishes he left. Say, oh, I played another year of college football. What good does that do if you're a 5th-round pick? What good does that do if you're a 4th-round pick? You're still bottom of the food chain. So I think a lot of this is not exactly how it appears and how it's being presented. And I'll be honest, I know it sounds crazy or weird to some, and maybe this sounds a little bit like old man yells at cloud. Maybe this is I'm not old, maybe I'm not young, I'm not middle-aged, I don't know. This is millennial yells at cloud, maybe, you could say that. So maybe this is millennial yelling at a cloud, but to me it's like, yeah, if I'm an NFL team, I look at Trinidad Chambliss kind of weird today. I'm like, you have an opportunity to play among the best players in the world and play in the NFL, and you want to keep playing college football for a 6th year? You've been in college forever. What are you ducking? What are you so afraid of? I know there's money. I know that's an incentive about this, but I do think that there is something about that would worry me if I was an NFL team. I'd grill him about it. I'm not saying I wouldn't draft him. I wouldn't say that would be. I would take him off the board, but I'd be like, so are you afraid of competition? Like, what's the deal? We wanted to draft you last year. We wanted you to be a part of the NFL. We thought you had shown enough. And the NCAA, the governing body of the sport, looked at your situation and said, you've run out of eligibility. You've been here too long. And you had to get lawyers involved to try to see if you could finagle your way to playing college football. Why was that important to you? Why was not playing amongst the highest competition for the best coaches with the best facilities to help develop you? Why was that not something you wanted to do? I'd love to hear his answer if I was an NFL evaluator, and he'd have to have a good one. Because this is ridiculous to me. the guy, I mean, it would be different. It would almost be, again, it'd be different if he didn't play at Ferris State. Like, he won a freaking national championship there. Okay, he didn't start the first game or two at Ole Miss, but he played almost the rest of the way, and he played the college football playoff. What are we doing here? And this is another blow, by the way, for these teams that don't have quarterbacks. Because I think Trinidad Chambliss, if he went through the NFL draft process, I know right now I think he probably was being graded as like a day 3 guy. I would not have been surprised if he became a guy that someone runs up into the late first round to grab. Because I watched this guy play in the college football play. I watched him play a little bit towards the end of the regular season too. Because as a Miami fan, I'm watching all these teams trying to beg one of these teams to blow a game so Miami can get to the playoffs. So I watched some Ole Miss too. I'm like, man, this Chambliss kid is good. I was like, I don't know, maybe it's the smoke and mirrors. Maybe, like, I don't know if I'm missing something, but he's good. And I remember I watched the Egg Bowl, which of course was a big storyline because, it was like, oh, it's going to be Lane Kiffin's last game. Is he going to decide after the game that he's leaving, or is he going to stay? What's going on? So I actually watched the Egg Bowl. I'm sitting in my my future mother-in-law's house, and I think they were all out, so I was by myself for some reason. And yeah, that was out because they were doing something. But so I'm just sitting at the crib by myself watching the Egg Bowl, and I watched this Trinidad Chambliss again light it up. I'm like, man, I know Mississippi State isn't that great, but they've been pesky. Like they beat Arizona State, and they just could not stop this guy. And I was like, man, he's good. And I kind of chalked it away. Then the college football playoff starts. Of course, they killed Tulane. And then the Georgia game happens, and I think that's what really opened people's eyes when he's doing a Patrick Mahomes impression or a Caleb Williams impression where he's running backwards, forwards, doing crazy stuff, throwing against his body 30 yards down the field. Like, whoa, this guy has that kind of game? Like, why does he want to come back to college? I kept saying, sweetie, I don't understand why this guy wants to go back to college. I think that if he goes to the NFL, maybe because people are not high on him right now, they're not talking about him, but trust me, they'll watch the tape and they'll lock in and they'll realize this guy is probably a first-round pick. That's what I thought, and I still feel that way. He's a little older, but okay, 23, going to be 24, that's not as bad. A year, I know it's only a year, but it does make a difference. Now you go on, he's 24 years old. I'm evaluating him as a 24-year-old up against 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds. How am I supposed to take this? And he's going to enter next year as an NFL quarterback at 25 years old? You want to talk about this thing of like, oh, like Joe Judge talking about, like, if you only start 1 year, that's a detriment to your career, which is true statistically. Also do the numbers on quarterbacks who enter the NFL after the age of 24 that are drafted, like your Chris Wenkeys, like your Brandon Weedens, because there was a thought process for those guys that, oh, those guys are grown-ups, they're seasoned, and like those guys are like, they can play right away, like they're ready to go. They're plug-and-play guys. And they were busters. Let me see if I can quickly get a list, because those are two guys I think off the top of my head, but they're not the only ones. Those players drafted in the NFL. They're not the only ones. There's a ton of them. But your Brandon Weedens, Chris Wenkeys, it was like, oh, well, these guys, I know they're old, but they're going to get in the NFL, and they'll be great. Like, Brandon Weeden was 28 years old, and he gets drafted by the Cleveland Browns, of course, because the Browns always don't know how to get this thing right. He gets drafted 28 years old in the first round. Like, well, listen, I know, like, he was a very good college quarterback. Very old, obviously. It's like, well, yeah, but he's seasoned. He's going to come into the NFL. He's not going to be, blitzed by the lights, camera, and action of it. He's not going to be overwhelmed. He's going to be a professional because he's just more mature. That didn't work. None of that stuff mattered. He was awful. Now Phil Simms was really good. He was he was a great quarterback. Obviously, he won a championship for the Giants. But Kenny Pickett was essentially 23, about to be 24 years old when he got drafted. Bust. The old quarterback getting drafted thing is also not the best. You have a couple of good ones. You got Phil Simms, one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks, and my all-time favorite Jet. Chad Pennington was drafted at 23 and 29 in 294 days. But typically speaking, these guys that get drafted that are older guys, they don't do very well. Like Wanky, Whedon, there's even some other. There's a couple of guards. There's a defensive tackle. These guys, they don't go out there and become stars. So even that idea that he'll be better off if he stays on the year. Well, we'll do the number of quarterbacks who get drafted since the last do the last 15 years. Quarterback drafted after the age of 23. How do they do? They all do terribly. So again, Mississippi with this is an advantage for him that he's going to get to come back to Ole Miss. It's not. At least it's not guaranteed it is. It's very much still up in the air. We got some people in the chat, and I promise I am going to get to this Joe Judge comment, because that comment was crazy. So you got Bob Custer saying, the issue is not an older student in college, but an older dude wanting to play college ball after losing after losing real eligibility. Many LDS students are older in college. And I don't know if that's a typo. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, if you want to be in college and you're older, that's not the issue. Again, I went to Hunter College. Some of my friends, some of my best friends from both my college and my grad school years were people that were middle-aged, older. That's not the issue. I don't like the idea that college sports is supposed to be it's supposed to be equal, where it's everybody playing on the same playing field. At least we know that's a lie, but that's the thought process of it, the amateurism of it. It's that all these teams have kids between 18 and 22 that are in their college years for 4 years, and before none of them are getting paid. So it's supposed to be a quote unquote even playing field. Okay, we know a lot that's a lie. But it's not even when some teams have kids that are mostly 21 or 20 and 19, and some teams have guys that are 24, 25. College basketball is worse because there's less players. So like Gonzaga, I love Gonzaga, but right now Gonzaga is a team where Grant Foster is going to be, I think he's 25 years old, and Graham Ike, their star, is 23 years old. They have these, and these are star players. These are difference makers. These guys, I love Ek and Grant Foster, but they're not NBA prospects. But they'll probably be great in Europe. They'll probably be great if they want to play in Australia. They'll be professionals. And these are professionals who are more physically developed grown men going up against teams that are playing 18-year-olds. Even though 18-year-olds are really good, they're not grown men. So I think it's not an even playing field. So I don't think it's fun for anybody. It's not fun for me. I mean, I like to see Gonzaga win. I'm rooting for him, but I don't think this is necessarily great for college sports at all. Got my guy Ariel in the chat from the Athletic newsletter. Montana linebacker Solomon Tuliapupu, a married father of two who was part of Trevor Lawrence's recruiting class, was granted a nice season. What is going on here? The Miami Hurricanes last season, not this past season, but the season before that with Cam Ward and them, they had Cam McCormick. Shout out to Cam McCormick. He's a Cane, and we love him. We show him all the love. But he got his 8th year of eligibility. He had a LinkedIn page about all the work he's done. And he went through some terrible injuries, and he had some crazy luck that was not good for him to have to try to get 8 years. But I'm sorry. I just think at a certain point, okay, you had a lot of injuries. That's your life. It happens. You can't keep playing. You can't keep playing college football, which is supposed to be for college athletes who are ages 18 to 22 for the most part, and say I want to keep playing football or basketball. If you have bad injuries, then you just had bad injuries, and that was your career. It sucks. I don't think you're entitled to 4 years of full healthy eligibility. This is getting ridiculous. Bob Cusso saying it seems weird. An older guy at 25 keeps mooching a roster spot over a 17, 18-year-old cat. That was something the NCAA had put in their statement, that they actually are trying to, in a statement after they lost this, that they're trying to protect. And they got to put, and listen, a lot of this is PR stuff. They're saying things that are good points just to say that they're good points. But it's true. Like, I agree with it. Like, they're saying, like, hey, we're trying to protect, like, the eligibility of all college athletes. And the reality is, if you're, like, an 18, 17-year-old freshman, who maybe in your life, you're not expecting to try to be in college for 7 years. Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you want to, I don't know, graduate on time, leave after 4 years, like most people. Like, I shouldn't come to a school and be like, especially with the transfer portal, where you can come in and be told, hey, you're going to play, there's plenty of space for you, and we're excited for you. And then you show up, and then some guy who's 25 years old enters the transfer portal, and then they take your spot. And it's like, I'm sorry, guy, this 25-year-old, he's a grown man, and we think he's going to help us win now, so therefore you're going to go to the bench. Like, you are taking playing time and roster spots from kids that are entering college sports. For these guys that are trying to hold on for dear life to something that has passed them by. I think it's a good point, Bob. I agree. I don't like this aspect of it. I think that part of it is corny. Trinidad Chambliss coming back to play college football for another year means that's one spot that could have went to a kid that has been waiting for this opportunity to finally play in the SEC and play college football, and they can't because this guy who, it's not like this is like, hey, he's got no future after this. Like, he's going to be, you know, a car salesman after this. Like, this guy will be in the NFL. How high, how low he's going to pick, I don't know. But he's going to be in the NFL. And the NFL is there for him now. And he's going to be 24 years old. Like, what are we doing? Just go to the NFL. Let someone else have the spot that you had. Like, you got the opportunity after all these years to play at Ole Miss and compete for a national championship and do things that never has happened at Ole Miss. You're a legend. Go out as a legend. Like, let someone else step into that spot and have that opportunity. You're not entitled to this. So, as you can see, I'm not a fan of this whole process that Trinidad Chambliss went through. I'm a fan of Trinidad Chambliss. I think the kid's a baller. Like, I don't know what's going to happen because college football is unpredictable. I would assume Ole Miss is going to be good, and I would assume he's going to be really exciting. I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of fun next year watching him play college football. But I'm not also just only thinking about the sake of college football in terms of what's better for my entertainment. Unofficial rule of any EJ show. EJ just wants things to be fair. This, I don't think is fair at all. But we got to get to Joe Judge, too, because he was part of this conversation because he was testifying on behalf of Trinidad Chambliss. He's an assistant coach for Ole Miss. He's one of the few guys that were on the offensive staff that actually didn't leave Ole Miss to go with Lane Kiffin, so he's still there. So, of course, he has every incentive to want to try to get Chambliss back because Chambliss is a great quarterback. He may come in next year as the best quarterback in college football. That's not an insane thing to say. Excuse me as I drink a little coffee here. So Joe Judge is at this. Again, he made the case earlier that you would be causing irreparable harm to his future by not letting him come back, because if he wants to be an NFL quarterback, quarterbacks who start more than 1 year have more success in the NFL than guys who only played 1 year. The problem is he didn't start 1 year. He started 2 or 3 years, but whatever. That was the case he made. At another point in time in the conversation, I guess he was talking about the dedication that college athletes need in order to thrive as a college football player. And I mentioned earlier about how Trinidad Chambliss had these respiratory issues. And one of the things was like, you know, his doctor was there. This was a kangaroo court. This was crazy. I think his doctor was there, or they had a doctor's note talking about his issues, and like he had problems sleeping because he couldn't breathe. Like the issues did seem serious, to be fair. And I guess they were asking Joe Judge about like the importance of like being rested and sleeping and preparation and being locked in to be successful as a college athlete. What came out of this man's mouth is something that I still sit here and I have trouble grappling with. Why he said this, and the fact that this is actually the outlook he has on life for his players when you're supposed to be a leader of men. You're teaching these kids not just about football, but also how to be great people in society. Here is Joe Judge on what he says on the conversations he has to have with the significant others of his players who may happen to be pregnant.
This is always a tough conversation to have. It's not a popular thing. Listen, the truth is, we would have to educate significant others who may have been pregnant during the season or going to have a baby during the season. And you'd have to educate them on You have this baby in the middle of the season. That father has to play good football, right? It's a day-by-day production business. He has to be ready to perform and go out there and play. And when I say that is, you need to let him sleep. He needs to be in another room, detached. You have to explain to the mother, like, hey, listen, he ain't waking up for midnight feedings. After the season, he's full metal jacket. You do whatever you want with him. And he can change every diaper. But in the season, he's got to have a different priority.
Oh, boy. He's not doing midnight feedings. He's got to be detached. This is nasty work. This is nasty work when it comes to Joe Judge. And I've seen folks, some folks who actually, covered Joe Judge with the Giants who have felt like, I don't know what their argument is, to be honest, but I think they just know him. They're like, hey, he doesn't sound as much an a-hole as he does in this clip. He's not that big an a-hole. Like, don't take this clip and think that he's a bad guy. He's not. I think I have obviously a ton of problems with this. Number one, as I mentioned, the whole purpose of college athletics, yes, is to win and make money. That's all of this is part of this is true. But there is an aspect, whether we want to believe it or not, I still believe in it. And these coaches will tell when they go and recruit these kids, they talk about it, that we're not just developing you to be a great football player. We're also trying to develop you to be the best husband, father, person in society moving forward. What a way to set the tone for fatherhood as a college athlete, as saying you need to be detached from your newborn. You need to be sleeping away in another room. You can't be helping your, what probably is maybe teenage or young age mom with raising a newborn child. That's what you're talking about from a guy who is propositioning himself to parents of recruits and players as, I'm a leader of men. I'm going to show you how to become a good person in society. That is your introduction to fatherhood. You need to be detached. After the season, hey, do whatever you want. You got to do midnight feedings or change diapers, whatever. But you can't be doing no changing diapers during the season. You need to be sleeping. You need to be locked in. This is nasty work, man. Come on, Joe Judge. That's disgusting. It's disgusting. I know college sports and big time athletics, you need focus. I understand all those things. But what I dislike so much about this is if you decide that what you guys do at Ole Miss is so complex and so difficult that if one of your players has a kid during the season, that they have to sacrifice helping the mother of their newborn. And again, we have a child. I've never had kids, but I have friends who have had kids. And you have a child. That is like a 24/7 job. Like you have to, like, it's not like, oh, like I can just like chill and nothing will happen. Like, no, you like not helping out could result in like the kid having serious issues. Like the kid could have a health problem. The kid could have whatever. Like you're just putting it all on one person. You're not helping out at all. That could actually be a health danger, a safety risk for a newborn. So that part of it is disgusting to me. But the other aspect too is, like I said, if this is so difficult and so challenging, to the point where you need the players to not be involved with caretaking for their own child. Last time I checked, you're Ole Miss. Last time I checked, let's see. Let's look at what is Ole Miss tuition? How much does it cost to go to Ole Miss per year? I can't wait to see this. If you're out of state, you're paying $2,600, $26,000. I'm sorry. You're in state, you're paying about $10,000. How much Ole Miss? How much revenue Ole Miss generated last year? Let's see. Ole Miss. Oh, look at this. This is crazy. Ole Miss reported $178.6 million in total athletics revenue last year. 178 million. If life for a college football player at Ole Miss is so complicated and so difficult, where they have to sleep through the night and not help their mothers of their children with changing diapers or midnight feedings, what are you doing to support the mothers of these children? You made $178 million. Are you providing nannies? Are you providing child support? Are you providing resources for them so that these mothers still have someone helping them out during this time? That if it's not the father, at least somebody is there. Are you supporting them in any way? What are you doing for that? I assume not much, because I didn't hear him say, "Hey, listen, we have resources at Ole Miss that help these mothers and these young infants still have, the lives that we want them to have, and still have, the protection that they need. But we just need our players locked in, and we're willing to pay in order to make that happen." And I'm assuming, I don't know the Ole Miss roster. I don't think this is 50 guys that have kids. Maybe this is a handful of guys. Maybe it's 5 or 6. Maybe it's even less than that. So it's not like I'm not even asking you to provide, doulas and provide, babysitters for an 80-man roster. I don't think that's needed. I think you're probably talking about 5, 6 people. Are you even doing that? Or are you just saying, "Oh no, we're not doing that either"? And again, what's sick about this again is this idea that, after the season, like, you go do whatever you want with them. What makes you think a 21-year-old kid who has a kid who just gone months and months with not having the responsibility of raising that kid is gonna just light bulb's gonna flip on and he's gonna be locked into raising a kid? Have you ever met a 20-year-old or 21-year-old? Remember when you were 20 years old? You think you're gonna be locked into that kind of thing when you've just been told that because of football being so important that raising your kid was not that important? You don't think they're going to make excuses for other things being more important than raising that kid? Again, this is the beginning of your kid's life. Not even like when they're 8 or 9 years old. This is the beginning. This is how you set the tone. Is that you need to be detached. Joe Judge, shame on you. This is embarrassing. How dare you say this? And that's a shame that you're telling, in the way he uses is educate. That this is some kind of like teachings that need to be brought upon the significant others of these players. And I think how it's not even a conversation with the players. It's like, no, we got to talk to these mothers and these women to get them to understand where their place is when it comes to the landscape of Ole Miss football, which is damn your kid, damn your sleep, damn whatever things you're going through in postpartum. What's most important is that guy's got to play good football, as Joe Judge said. And Joe Judge talking about anybody playing good football is quite hilarious, considering I watched that guy coach for the Giants for 3 years. And I saw nothing but crappy football from that guy. If he was telling them guys that we need to do all this stuff to play good football, if he was doing that with the Giants, then they should have been doing the opposite. Those guys should have been doulas. Those guys should have became babysitters. Those guys should have been taking care of other people's kids and their own kids. If this is the advice Joe Judge is giving, and that was the result we saw with the New York Giants every Sunday and Monday night and Thursday night. Because that team was cheeks, as Keith McPherson said earlier this week. Cheeks with Joe Judge as their coach. Insane. Just is completely insane. And what I hate about this too is, and I want to shout out Sean McVay. Because Sean McVay talked about how when he was coaching, and you hear coaches talk about this all the time. You get this idea that, I need to be this insane grinder. And like, I'm sleeping at the facility. And I didn't get no sleep last night. And all I did was just grind tape. And I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I don't even go home. I don't even say hi to my wife. I don't do none of that stuff. And Sean McVay said that it was killing him. And he's a phenomenal coach, a highly successful guy who is still highly successful. He said it was killing him. And also he was seeing like his lack of happiness, joy, and how it was affecting his life and his family's life in a serious way. And he said, I got to make an adjustment. What am I doing? I'm not a better coach because I didn't sleep last night. I'm not a better coach because I stayed at the facility and just watched tape until my eyes bled. I'm not. Because I'm not sleeping. I'm not engaged. I'm not doing any of the things I need to do to be a human. Because I know a lot of the football feels robotic, but there's a human element to it. You got to be able to deal with people, deal with teammates, deal with staff members and all those different things. You got to be a person. And McVay's like, not being a person didn't make me a better coach. So he tells players, like, oh, like, I'm at the facility. Like, he's like, hey, go home. Go to your wife. Play with your kids. Like, you're doing enough. You're doing enough work. We're preparing you for Sundays and Thursdays and Monday nights. You're gonna perform. Do not sacrifice being a family man, being a good person in society for the sake of saying that this is somehow going to help you on Sundays when it's BS. Sean McVay stopped doing all that stupid grinding of I'm watching tape until my eyes bleed and I didn't sleep last night because I was just at the facility, or I didn't sleep with my kid with my wife. I was at the facility sleeping on the couch in my office because that's just the grind of, like, it's stupid. He's like, it's all stupid. And Sean McVay, look how smart and successful he is as an NFL head coach. Tell me that guy is lying and that he's wrong. No, Sean McVay's wrong. I know better. Yeah, don't be a good father. That's how you're going to... Look at Joe Judge. Look at how Joe Judge and his career went. And look at how he's coaching as an assistant in college football. And look at what Sean McVay is doing. And then a Super Bowl champion, a former NFL Coach of the Year, a guy who was just one possession away of getting back to another Super Bowl. Look at his career, and he's telling you, that ain't it, bro. That ain't it. So, like, this self-importance that sometimes these people have that when they're related to sports, and how much of a facade it is, how fake it is. It's silly. I remember talking to, shout out to my guy Perloff. I remember talking to him about, like, we talked about this on the show too. We talked about it off air and on there. Sometimes with that show, it's fun because, like, we'd have conversations like, wait, we talk about this off air or on there? That one also we did both. But we talk about, and I think that it came up, I think the original conversation was happening before I even got on the show, was Mike McCarthy saying that he watched every minute of every NFL game the previous season before interviewing with the Cowboys, which mathematically was impossible. It was like, there's no way he could have done this. You know, it's football, that is. And then we've had, like, recurring conversations since about, like, what do NFL coaches do in the offseason? Now, I know they did, like, a 60-minute special on Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick actually does a lot, like, because he's Bill Belichick. But I think now we're even seeing Bill Belichick, like, a lot of him doing, you know, weird stuff with Jordan Hudson on the beach and golfing. Like, Perloff's like, these people are on the golf course, like, 7 days a week for 5 hours a day. Like, it's, like, they're not grinding tape nonstop. They're not doing all, like, coaches in season. Like, I mean, coaches you saw, like Steve Spurrier, like, he was apparently golfing throughout the entire season when he was with the Washington football team. Sean Payton went to Denver in part because he needed to find a place that he can golf. That was one of the big priorities when it came to where he was going to go. He said, I want to go to a place that I can golf. You can't golf, obviously, in December in Colorado, but Colorado in September and October is probably beautiful golf weather. That was a priority for him. You think he's sitting and grinding and not being a person, not being a family man till his eyes bleed? No. He's being a human. And that makes these people better coaches. It makes them better at their jobs. Not just being football. So, I mean, it's just lame, man. It was very disappointing. You know, that should not have been at all a message that Joe Judge was giving to his players. These are young men. I mean, some of these kids are 18 years old. I mean, there's some kids that have young children, right? Yeah, young athletes that have children, like 18 years old, 19 years old, and you're talking about you're not doing midnight feedings and you need to be detached. Think about telling that to a teenager. Like, that's to me, like, again, like, I want to emphasize that part of it. Is, like, you shouldn't be telling that to anybody. But in my galaxy brain, I'm like, could I convince myself that someone who's 27 years old in the NFL, who's been preparing for maybe having a kid for most of their life, understands the responsibility of that if you, oblige this Joe Judge request that once the season ends, you got to be a present father and how important that is, just because they have more life experience? I could galaxy brain my way into seeing that point of view. Again, telling this to a 19-year-old kid, telling this to a 20-year-old kid, and their brains not being fully developed to understand even what you're trying to convey to them, which is nonsense anyway, but to make parenthood and caretaking for an infant to be something that is not as important as making sure you know all your blitz pickups or that you know your third down coverages. Come on, man. Come on. Like what? Again, and we're not talking about 50 guys on a roster to have kids. It's college football. Now, I don't know. Like, the thing is, though, I don't know. We have guys that are 25, 24 years old, so maybe we are having more people with kids. But I would still assume even people in that age, I'm assuming you're talking about younger age people. I know we understand people have jobs and they have different things with their careers, and sometimes it requires mothers to do more because of a person and one guy being the breadwinner. And to be honest, it still also creates dynamics that can still be unhealthy and they have to deal with and they have to work through. But we know that that's a reality. But to go to this level, that you should be detached? Come on, man. That's nasty work from Joe Judge. Nasty work from the former Giants head coach. Ariel, I think he enjoyed I watched Giants football, and I didn't see good football there, so he should have the Giants. Every Giant player should have been designated to be a caretaker for an infant somewhere. If you don't have a kid, go find someone else with a kid. Because Joe Judge is telling you, you got to play good football, which means you can't caretake for your child. And then why were you guys QB sneaking on 3 plays in a row against the Commanders on your own goal line in a game you were losing? Like, that guy of all people talking about, I know what it takes to play good football. And I watched him coach Mac Jones as an offensive coordinator and call plays for one of the worst offenses the Patriots have had for the last 30 years. And then I watched him coach for the New York Giants. And then he gets a pencil pusher job with the Ole Miss Rebels. And they have a great season, but like he essentially is carrying the water for Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane Kiffin. And he's like, I know good football. And you need to tell your kids, hey, man, I can't help you, buddy. Oh, you're crying late at night? It's not me. Not me. Oh, you cannot make this stuff up. Here's Bob Custer in the chat. EJ in 2012, I computed that Notre Dame made over $500,000 profit per roster spot on the football team based on 60 players. Joe Judge sounds like a knucklehead. Yeah, it's the revenue and profit these guys are making is insane. The money is insane. That's why they keep trying to hold on to it for dear life. That's why it took us forever even just to get NIL. Even that isn't technically the school's money. And then we had to fight. We had to get the Supreme Court involved to get revenue sharing because they didn't want to get rid of the revenue. Like, there's so much money being made. Again, if you were going to put that insane thing out there, Joe Judge, I would have hoped it would have followed with, we give all the support to the mothers of our children, their children, to make sure that they still have full, healthy introductions to their lives in the world. Like, again, think about how precious that is. It's maybe the most precious thing we have in life today. That, you know, those things that are like, I know there's a lot of, I'm not going to get into, like, obviously, certain other aspects of it, but, like, an infant being born and, like, the importance of, like, taking care of it, I think that has, like, 100% level approval rating. Like, everyone understands the importance of that. Even if you're bad at it, I think you understand the importance of that and how, like, important those years are and those months and days are. And especially if anybody who's a parent, to be like, no, they don't actually matter. They can do it on their own. They'll be fine. You got to focus on making sure you know all our special teams packages for upcoming Saturday. And you know some of these guys ain't no star players, too. That's the thing that's funny about this, is that we actually educate all of the mothers of these kids that, you know, our players are having. And you know he's talking about the second string left tackle. You know he's talking about the guy that's the gunner on special teams. Where it's like, man, just run fast down the sideline and tackle the guy. Some of these guys don't have that complicated jobs. Yeah, the quarterback, maybe the free safety, maybe the guy with the dot on his helmet, so it has to call the defensive calls. Maybe those guys, sure. I think Reuben Bain knows that, hey, line up on the outside and destroy that left tackle and attack the quarterback. I don't think you got to tell that guy too many things about, oh, I got to prepare and I got to have the best night of sleep. I think say, hey, line up, bull rush that tackle and kill the quarterback. I think some of this stuff is simple. I think football is a complicated sport. I know that you do need to be all dotted I's and all your P's and Q's. But some of it is not rocket science now. Come on. The fact that you can't change a diaper? He said changing diapers he can do. You can't change a diaper? Come on, Joe Judge. That's utterly insane. Bob Carter also saying Sean McVay always seems grounded. Yes, he does. Well, again, but that's something that him saying that is something that he grew into this, and I really appreciated when he opened up about that, because I think we do, and it also speaks to just the inflated importance we have on sports, and we see it with how we abuse these guys on social media, and how we abuse these guys with trash talk, and how we abuse these guys. And I say I'm using abuse. I think it's the right word. We talk about the mental health issues a lot of these guys have because of fan abuse and people with death threats and all these different things. All of this stems from an overimportance of sports. That's all of it, everything we're talking about with this. All of it stems from that we've put so much emphasis on sports being super important. Now, I don't want you to say, oh, okay, I'm turn off EJ Stream. Don't do that. Please stay locked in. Please keep rocking with me. But no, it's all a part of an overimportance of sports. So I really appreciated McVay being able to step back and say, what am I doing? And you forget about what am I doing, like, in terms of like, oh, like my family life is becoming worse because of what I'm doing. And is this even freaking working? Like, is it actually working for me to be so dedicated to the grind that I lose all sight of everything that makes me a human? Does that actually make me a better football coach? Because I'll tell you this, like a football player that has they say happy life, happy wife. A football player that has a mother that is going through postpartum, that is being told that they have to do everything on their own, and then has to go back home to that, and what comes with that, I don't necessarily expect that that's going to be the smoothest situation. So what does that mean for that person's mental state when they go back onto that field? They may have slept well, but did they sleep well? Were there arguments? Were there fights that were going on because the one guy's not doing their part? Like, again, this thing is so nonsensical, what Joe Judge said. So I definitely appreciate what we got from Sean McVay. Ariel also, quote, babe, I can't feed the kids tonight. Coach Judge told me I don't have to before the game tomorrow. A bottle would fly at my head. And I know Jen. I know Ariel's wife. Yes, you would take physical punishment if you somehow said I couldn't do something for my kid because something Joe Judge told me. Oh, man. Shout out to Ariel. Shout out to Jen. Shout out to their family. They're beautiful people. Before we get out of here, man, I want to do one thing. And thank you guys. This has been a fun show. I know most shows this week in the morning we've been doing guests, so this is kind of the first show since Monday that I've done a morning solo show. So it's been fun. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Of course, again, if you're enjoying this, man, make sure you can do a couple things for me that I would appreciate. Number one, we're streaming live multiple spots. We're streaming live on YouTube, New Generation Media. Streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. And streaming live on IG Live, Action EJ. So appreciate you guys for watching in all different locations. If you could subscribe and follow in all those spots, we greatly appreciate it. Subscribe on YouTube, New Generation Media. Follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. Follow me on Instagram, Action EJ. And follow me on TikTok as well, Action EJ. I'm not streaming on TikTok, but follow me there as well, Action EJ on TikTok, where you'll find me there. And second thing, if you could give me a like, thumbs up in the comments, that would be appreciated, man. If you can like this video, especially on YouTube, but all the spots. You can like this video on YouTube, like this video on Instagram, like this video on X. That goes a long way. When you get in the comment section, that helps a ton too. Whether it's live comment chat or post the show and just say, hey, great show. I'm having a lot of fun watching this, man. Good job. All those things, all that engagement helps the channel. So if you can give us a like, give us a thumbs up. If you can get into the comment section, tell us how much you're enjoying the show. We appreciate that. And thirdly, like I say, every episode gets podcasted. So if you missed part of this, or you're on the go, or you're saying, hey, I want to watch the rest of this, but I got to run, and maybe you can't watch on YouTube, you could always stream the show from any podcast platform that you so choose. Just search New Generation Podcast Network. You can get both this podcast, 40 Days, 40 Nights, along with all the other shows that we do on New Generation Media. So this show, 40 Days and 40 Nights, plus all the shows we have on New Generation Media. Bob Custis saying, have a great weekend, everyone. We're not done yet. I got one more thing to talk about. We're not running out of here. I just want to get this out of there, so I don't got to do everything at the last second. So don't leave me too early, Bob. But shout out to everyone. I hope you do have a great weekend. Have a great Valentine's Day weekend. I got to do some kind of Valentine's Day theme thing tonight. I don't know what I want to do yet, but I got to do something to spice things up. Ariel's putting here, did you discuss Nick Castellanos last night? I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah, Castellanos, he got cut. This has been a situation that we were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. The Phillies had already decided, yeah, man, we're getting bro out of here. Like, he's not coming back. Well, I don't know if we're going to trade him. I don't know if we're going to cut him. I don't know what's going to happen. But he will not be a member of the Phillies any longer. And he's owed $20 million still. He's going into the final year of a 5-year, $100 million contract. The Phillies will owe him that entire sum minus the prorated portion of the league minimum. So Castellanos was benched last season after he made Phillies manager Rob Thompson. He made what the manager described as a, quote, inappropriate comment after he was pulled for a defensive assignment in Miami. Castellanos said in September that communication with Thompson had been questionable, at least in my experience. So he wrote a handwritten letter on Thursday, thanking Philadelphia, thanking the fans, and he posted to social media, and he also explained that incident about the benching. He said that he had brought beer into the dugout after being taken out of a game and complained to Thompson about team rules. He said teammates took the beer away before he drank any of it. He wrote, after being taken out of a close ball game in front of my friends and family, I brought a Presidente into the dugout. I then sat right next to Rob and let him know that too much slack in some areas and too tight of restrictions in others was not conducive to us winning. Afterward, he went into the office with Thompson and President Dave Dombrowski. We aired out our differences, and the conversation ended with me apologizing for letting my emotion get the best of me, and that he was benched the next game as punishment. So Castellanos, he's kind of been a wild man since he got there. His introduction to the larger baseball world beyond just baseball fans, he's been a player for a long time in the game. He's 34 years old. But he's become infamous because of what happened with Tom Brenneman, the former broadcaster who was caught using anti-LGBTQ slurs and comments on a hot mic. And Castellanos, as he's realizing that, oh my God, this is going viral, but I still have to call this game because someone has to call the rest of this game. He's like, something's out there on social media about some things I said. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know if I'm going to work again. And there's a deep drive for Castellanos. And that became this whole running meme. And there were so many things where, like, Castellanos would have a game-winning home run or he'd have a big play. And then something crazy would happen that day. And that became this running joke on the internet that continued to happen. And when he got cut yesterday, everybody's like, all right, something big's going to happen today outside the world or something else happening adjacent to baseball. Somebody's going to get fired. We're going to learn some weird stuff. Anytime Castellanos has a news event, something crazy happens. So they're going to move on from him. Last year, he had 250, 17 home runs, 72 RBIs in 147 games. I think he's one of those guys where he was welcome in Philadelphia. I think he's one of those guys where this is an addition by subtraction. Phillies are getting hurt a little bit in terms of some of the guys that they lost and some of the guys that they were unable to sign with, like a Bo Bichette. And now not being able to work it out with Castellanos so they can release a playable guy for this year. Now you lose him for a year. They already, Adolis Garcia is already expected to replace Castellanos, so they have his replacement in tow. So he was done. So I'm not surprised that they moved on from him. I'm curious if Castellanos has value to one of these other teams because he's still productive. He's not a scrub. I think he can go somewhere and still DH for some teams. But he's had attitude issues. Like he runs hot. He ran hot in Philadelphia, and I think because of that city, I think some of the stuff they actually kind of liked, even though he was being a complete jerk sometimes to reporters and things like that. They were like, well, it's Philadelphia. He kind of is embodying what the city's about in many ways. But I think when you start to become so much of an irritant and so much of a distraction, and you display your frustrations with bringing beer into the clubhouse, or not even the clubhouse, into the dugout, to speak about your, your frustrations with being benched. It just speaks to your head just not being completely there in the game, and he became more trouble than he's worth. It kind of reminds me of like when Patrick Beverly, during the NBA, remember he grabbed the camera from the photographer. It had a picture of the foul that should have been called on LeBron James that sent the game into overtime against the Lakers and Celtics. He brought the camera out onto the field. That essentially feels like what Castellanos was doing here. It was like, this is so ridiculous. I'm so mad that I'm getting benched. I'm going to bring a beer in and show that I'm like, you guys don't care about me. I'm just going to drink this beer. He says he didn't drink the beer. He said the beer wasn't open, but I guess it was supposed to be symbolic of just like how much he was like, F you guys. Like, I'm just going to sit back and kick my feet up since you guys don't think I can actually help this team in any way down the stretch of a close game. I do think he's competitive. I just think he runs hot. And this was somebody that was not going to be able to continue on, I think, with Thompson being still the manager and the nucleus of the team still being the nucleus. His time had worn out. His time wore out. Bringing a beer into the dugout is insane. But it's Nick Castellanos. It's not surprising. It's not like it makes sense that he would do something like this. But I think he just wore out his welcome. And they said, let's find somebody who could be as productive as him, but not as much a pain in the ass. And Adolis Garcia it can be good. It can be as productive as him, and it's not a pain in the ass. So I think it just made it clear. Now Adolis last year, numbers were, I think, slightly worse. The OPS was only 665. Had hit 227. He did hit more home runs. He had 19 home runs. But I think they're thinking bring him to Philadelphia, put him in that bandbox of a ballpark. Maybe those numbers improve. Adolis Garcia has been an all-star in Major League Baseball, similar to Nick Castellanos. So I think they look at that and say, hey, this is a wash. We'll eat the money. We have the money to spend to eat it. Let's just move on. Ariel, who asked the question this, he said, I think the clubhouse is fine, but bringing it into the dugout is insane. Yeah, bringing beer into the dugout of a game that is happening. But that's him. Like, it's not surprising. Like, he runs hot. He gets out of control. He's an extremely competitive guy, and again, you could deal with that when he's hitting 30 home runs a year, which is the kind of player he was at one point. Not this older version who's horrible defensively, who really is only a bat and is now a malcontent. You can't deal with that with all this. Like, we can find somebody to hit 17 home runs and hit 250. And they think they found somebody with Adolis Garcia, who at one point in time looked like he was going to be one of the better hitters in the American League. He kind of fell off a cliff. It's funny because what's the name? Ariel also said it's crazy that the Rangers just released Garcia. I know, like, that was crazy. But these guys, these like masher types who don't hit for, they don't consistently get on base, but they can hit home runs and they play no defense and they provide no speed. Those guys just aren't that valuable. Like, you need those guys. You need some of them because you need some guys that can, smack a home run. They got some power and they can change the game with their power. Power is always going to be valuable to major league teams, so it's not like they're nothing. But in terms of like playing these guys every day or finding another guy to fall from a tree that can do what the Castellanos and Garcias is doing nowadays, they can find those guys. Those guys are replaceable. They're like running backs in the NFL, or at least what they used to be. Where it's like, I can find anybody that could be Kenneth Walker. Now we're learning maybe you can't, and things are getting flipped the other way around. But that's how I view the Castellanos Garcia DH bad outfielder type guy. So he was expendable. But shout out to Nick Castellanos. We'll see if something happens today. I don't think anything happened crazy yesterday. Maybe something will happen today that will be, Castellanos got cut. That means something happened. Or maybe he'll get signed. And that will be the news then that something crazy happens. But that's coming. That happens every time. Real quickly before I get out of here, I want to talk about what happened with the interview that my friend Zach Gelb had for 365 Sports. So on his show, he had former Super Bowl champion and former Colorado Buff national champion Christian Fauria. You may remember him playing for the first Patriots dynasty. He was their tight end. And he had some harsh words for current coach for the Buffs, Deion Sanders. Now, for background, Christian Fauria, this is not the first time he's been critical of Deion Sanders, though he's kind of tiptoed around really getting after Deion Sanders. His son played for Deion Sanders for a year at Colorado. His son was originally recruited by Carl Durrell in 2020 and was there for 3 years and then eventually transferred to Delaware. So that's your background on this. Here is Christian Fauria with Zach Gelb saying that he is not a fan of one Coach Prime.
I'll just put it this way because I don't have time to get – I'm just not a fan of the coach. I'm not. I'll never be a fan of the coach. I love the school, and this isn't me picking on Deion Sanders because I pick on Joe Gibbs. The worst coach I've ever had was Joe Gibbs. So me picking on Deion Sanders is nothing. I just don't like the way he coaches football. I don't think he's very bright. I don't think he can manage a game. I think there's a lot of flash, but I think there's no substance, and he's got a lot of people like brainwashed.
I'm sure Joe Gibbs sitting around somewhere being like, what did he say fuck me for? What did he say F me for? He's like, Joe Gibbs is sitting somewhere. Shout out to Joe Gibbs, Hall of Fame coach. He's sitting somewhere like, ooh, why am I catching strays in this? This had nothing to do with me. He probably doesn't even remember he coached Christian Fauria. He's like, listen, I'll call out Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs was my worst coach. And like, Gibbs is like, okay. Sitting somewhere probably getting ready for a NASCAR weekend. Like, what? Why is Christian Fauria shooting at me? But anyway, you hear there, he doesn't think Coach Prime is good. He doesn't think he knows a lot about football. Doesn't think that he's all that bright when it comes to being a head coach. So he's taking big shots. What was interesting here as well was Fauria said that he feels like other alumni feel the same, but they don't feel comfortable talking about what they think when it comes to Deion Sanders and his poor coaching.
I'm not a fan of him. Not a fan of his coaching style. Not a fan of his messaging. There's a lot of things, internally that I know about that I'm not a fan of. And it's just not worth my energy to sit there and follow it and then go back and forth with the Emperor Has No Clothes crowd that support him regardless of how stupid he is sometimes. So, yeah, that's the way I feel about it. And it bugs me that a lot of alumni just don't speak up about it. They don't say anything. And but I will.
So there he's saying there are a lot of people within the Colorado orbit who also feel like this Deion thing is not working out the way they felt like it should. So Christian Fauria continues saying that he initially was really high on Deion Sanders, was really excited about his hiring, but then once again says what he has seen from Colorado is no substance.
So initially, I was all for it. I was backing everything that he was doing because that's what Bill McCartney did. Very unpopular. So he had to have the courage of his convictions and then ignore everybody else. But as time went on, I'm just like, wait, none of this makes any sense. I'm like, how long are they going to put up with this? And what else are we going to do? So if relevancy and having a sold out crowd, having people talk about you on Twitter, if that's what you want, well then congratulations, you've achieved it. But I just don't know, like, if is that the end goal? Just to be relevant, to have a new scoreboard, to have have people talking about you, or do you want to win games?
Well, they definitely didn't win a lot of games last year. And lastly, from Christian Fauria saying essentially that if Deion wants to change his mind on his coaching, how about you go win something?
Win games the way you win games, the way you recruit, like know everybody's name. Give everybody the same attention. Sing the fight song. Learn the fight song. I would say then you got business. But right now, all your victories are hollow in my book. If all you care about is relevancy, they're hollow. They mean nothing. Win the Big 12. Go ahead, win that, and then okay, your methods work. But right now, listen, Zach, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, I'm not a fan.
Oh, we got it. I think, shout out to my good friend Zach Gelb. I think he got it. I think we got it. Christian Fauria, you're not a fan of Deion Sanders. So that last part, I think, speaks to, I guess, the actual concerns that Christian Fauria has, which is that essentially Deion is not really locked into things that may seem small, but that actually matter. Like understanding and treating all the kids the same, like understanding their names and what they're going through, and understanding the importance of the school and some things that matter to school tradition, like knowing the fight song. I guess these are things that Christian Fauria is trying to confirm that Deion doesn't know. Now his kid was there, so it's not like his kid he does like he has no inside information. Of course, he's also an alumni and he's connected to the school, but his kid also was there. Now, to be clear, his kid didn't play very much. His kid has dealt with some injuries, but he eventually transferred to Delaware, and he actually played a little bit at Delaware. He got way more playing time than he did at Colorado, but his kid, Caleb, was on the team from 2020 to 2023. And I do think that always is going to color any criticism of a coach in a different light when you bring in, this is the father of a son who Deion didn't play and didn't seem to care for. It does not mean that what he's saying is cap at all, but it does paint, maybe an axe to grind. And maybe would he be saying this if Caleb was getting all this burn and all this playing time? Would he saying, hey, you're giving Caleb all this attention, but are you giving Johnny Smith over there the attention? Those are all fair things to say. And I think that they're fair things to challenge Christian Fauria on. And I'll be honest, I'm not criticizing Zach at all, but because they were running out of time. This was actually the end of the interview. But if Zach had 10 minutes, I'm sure Zach would have asked him, like, your son played there, like, and I know he didn't play much. Like, do you feel like you're coming from this in a fair way? Like, knowing Zach, and he asked a lot of great follow questions. That's why we got all these great sound bites, by the way, because Zach asked a bunch of follow questions, and which I love. So many people do these kind of interviews and just let a guy talk and say, oh, that's interesting. All right, anyway. And I'm like, whoa. Break down what he just said. Like, why? Because the whole thing about relevancy, Zach asked him, like, I know you're saying that like, Deion's dumb or whatever, but, like, Colorado was in the crapper before he got there. And yes, they've only had one winning season in the 3 years he's been there, but they, at very least, like, they are a relevant college football program, at least way more so than they were before he got there. And then that's what Christian Fauria went off about. What the hell does relevancy matter? Okay, we have a new scoreboard. There's a little bit of money in everybody's pockets. But does that mean anything? Like, do these wins mean anything if we're not actually working towards winning a championship or winning the Big 12? I think win the Big 12 is a little bit of a high bar for success at Colorado. Colorado has not won the Big 12 or any conference because they won the Pac-12 for a while. I mean, since it might be like the 90s. Like, it's been that long. So that's a really high bar. I think if you're just a consistent winner at Colorado, you could say Deion has succeeded at his goal, which he has not done yet. I've said for a while, I'm starting to look at this thing. It doesn't feel like Deion is long for this job. That's the wording I've used. And the folks that have been critical of Deion, that I think are fair to Deion, there aren't these haters or people who just want to get after him, is Deion, for everything he says about wanting to help kids and wanting to support kids and stuff, he is also very much he's a self-promoter. And he is someone that always is looking to see, he's very strategic with everything he does. His entire life, his entire career. I know he says he's not that bright. I would disagree with that assessment in terms of being a person. Deion, to be as successful as he is and be the position he's in, always seems to find himself in the center of attention. You have to be bright to put yourself in that spot. So he may not be a bright head coach, but he's bright in terms of just being a person. So I disagree with that with Christian Fauria. But the people that have criticized Deion have said that he tends to use people and use situations to further his own personal goals and further whatever agendas he may have. And he paints it as, I'm trying to help these people, I'm trying to help this person, or I'm trying to just be a good whatever. But in the end of the day, it always seems like Deion is the one that is able to get out like a bandit. That's what they said at Jackson State, I'm sorry. That's what they said at Jackson State. That's what they said at, these schools that he built, like Prime Prep. Some people are like, what the hell is Prime Prep? He made a high school that was a high school that's supposed to help students and help kids. And also they had obviously a football team, and that's where he was coaching. And the school went under, and there were all these issues with academics and all those different factors. But hey, Shiloh and Shador got to play high school football, play at a high level, so that none of that mattered, right? Like that. So this has been a pattern for Deion. It does now. That's a criticism. It does. He could be. He's trying, and it's just things aren't working out the way they do. It's just life. You could assume that that's not. It's not. Oh, he's trying to do this to reach people, and then he's just getting out. It could just be he tried something and It didn't work out exactly how he wanted, and that's life. You try things and you fail. And because he's trying things at such a high level, yeah, there's a lot of people who may catch shrapnel, but that's just the nature of the stuff he's trying to do. But there are some people who say that there's a pattern there, that he seems to do this. And with Colorado, I do look at this. And now that his kids are gone, and I always say his pseudo-adopted kid, Travis Hunter, and I'm telling you, it's and apologies to Travis and to Deion, because I'm telling you clear, this is fully speculation. I don't know. I have no inside information. I'm just an observer, and I just watch things and I read things. Like Kevin Durant said, I read between the lines, right? I feel like something is going on with the Travis Hunter-Deion relationship that we're going to learn in years, 2 years, 3 years, this year, whatever, that it's not what it appeared to be, or it was as close as it appeared to be, and something changed. Because I find it very weird. Deion seemed to be kind of completely removed from the Travis Hunter draft part, and obviously Shador had his own party, but he wasn't absolutely. Deion wasn't going to be at the draft, but there seemed to be no efforts to like put out on social media, like me FaceTiming Travis, telling him how much a great job he did and talking to him, especially when Deion's this big self promoter. This is the time where you don't big up the guy that got you all this hubbub, all this praise, all these accolades at Colorado. Like, you can say, I want to make it about him, but when he's having his biggest moment, now you're not using your platform to even further his success. And then he's gone to the NFL, and there obviously was a wedding. I know they said, and Deion had cancer, so the wedding thing I'm off. We're not talking about the wedding thing in terms of why he wasn't there. But the off season went how it went. You weren't really around because you were dealing with health issues. Okay, cool, we understand that. But all right, it just feels like that situation is just detached completely. And this was a guy who Deion was saying he's like my fourth son. That's how he talked about Travis Hunter. And you find me the last time he has said anything about Travis Hunter, bigged up Travis Hunter in any way, talked about this familial relationship he had with Travis Hunter. He talked about Shador, he talked about Shiloh, he talked about Deion Jr. all the time. And those are his actual kids, which that should be a relationship. But when you present something when he's there and you're able to benefit from his talents by you wrapping your arms around him in the way that you did, and then once he's gone, that whole relationship just seems so distant, seems so like not in front of the cameras, when everything was about putting that relationship in front of the cameras. I find it weird. I find it weird when Travis Hunter's father, I know he was, away, and now he's trying to come back more into his son's life because I think he was in prison, if I'm not mistaken. Apologies if he wasn't, but I think he was behind bars. So, like, Travis Hunter has a dad, and Travis Hunter's dad seems to be now being a more part of the whole situation with him and his career and his life, which is beautiful, by the way. I'm very happy for Hunter and his family. But, like, to me, you don't stop being, like, his support system because, like, his dad's around. Maybe you say, okay, your dad's here, and now, like, he steps into the role that needs to be. But, like, and you don't post the guy. You don't talk about the kid. You would not know Travis Hunter played at Colorado the last year. It's weird to me. So I look at those kind of things and I'm like, what's going on there? I ask those questions. I can be totally wrong. They can have a great relationship. It could be exactly the way it was when he recruited him out of high school, when he had him at Jackson State, and when he had him in Colorado. I could just be wrong. It's just the movement is clearly different. Whether that's true or not, the movement is different. You were going to see Shador Sanders play. You didn't go to see Travis Hunter play in the NFL. You're moving different than you did before when you were saying this guy's like my son. So I hear these things with Christian Fauria being like, are you treating all the kids the same way? Or do you know everybody's name? Are you really kind of attentive to all the things that go with being a college football coach beyond just self-promotion? I don't think that they're unfair questions to ask and to question with him at this point in time if you have insider information that suggests that he's not. Because I think that you look at the product and you look at what Colorado has been in the last 3 years, and I think that they're fair questions. The way Deion's handled the coaching staff, the way the people that Deion has brought into the coaching staff, like, you're bringing in, shout out to Marshall Faulk, but he's had some very disturbing allegations with sexual misconduct, and you're bringing in Warren Sapp. I have to get into the issue of Warren Sapp, right? And let's not say that if you have bad issues or you've had things in your life, that means you should never be allowed to work again and that you're canceled for life. I'm not saying that at all. But you are talking about bringing guys in who we have no idea what kind of work they've done to repent for whatever. Not repent strong. I don't want to get religious, but you know what I mean. Like to make amends for whatever harm they may have caused people or whatever growth they may need. Like I watched Zach Gelb. I'm talking about Warren Sapp. Speaking of Zach Gelb, like I was 10, 15 feet away when Zach Gelb had that, whatever that thing was with Warren Sapp. And Warren Sapp's a Kane. So I got a lot of love for Warren Sapp. But he asked him a question about Micah Parsons, and then they get into it, and he, like, storms up and runs out and leaves, and everybody's like, what the hell was that about? Why did you treat Zach like that? Why were you so unprofessional? You're currently a coach. You're a representative of Colorado, and that's how you're handling a question about pass rushing and Micah Parsons? Like, it seemed weird. And then Warren Sapp, he had another issue during this. Oh, it was with the Miami Hurricanes. You know, now he wants to. You know, and to be clear, we love all the alumni at the Canes. If you're once a Cane, you're always a Cane, just like a Nick. But you know, there's been reports that like during the national championship week, like obviously there are a lot of Indiana fans that were in South Florida, and you see some social media we don't know, but like you see someone's like, yeah, like I watched Warren Sapp get into like a very awkward altercation with like a female Indiana fan, and then the Miami fans that were there, they're like, yeah, Warren was being a jerk. Like we all saw what happened. Like these are folks that Deion is bringing into his program, and these are things that Christian, I would love to have, like Christian, if you want to talk more, open invitation. I'd love to talk more about like what are these things that you're talking about, what are the things that you're seeing, because Deion has made some questionable decisions about how he's moving, how he has treated the media, and how he's talked to them, and how he's banned people from questions, banned people from sessions, simply for questioning his coaching. Now, Deion has his haters. Deion has his people that have their knives out. That's no doubt about that. But that doesn't mean that he is absolved of any criticism. That doesn't mean he's not absolved of any commentary about the job he's doing. Not at all. But Fauria, you have to paint everything with he has a personal thing with Deion Sanders, because Deion Sanders, he feels like, did not take care of his son the way he wanted. So that paints all of this with a Colorado black and gold colored lens that you need to look at and understand when you take these comments in. But this is somebody who had a kid, and therefore he was involved with what was going on in Colorado. He's just saying what's being taught, how they're raising these kids, he just does not believe in. And he does not think is good. And he does not think is conducive to winning football. If you look at Colorado, they had that one good year with Deion Sanders, obviously. The second year when they won 9 games with Shedeur Sanders lighting up the scoreboard and Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy. But then you look at this past season with Colorado football. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they won 4 games. I'm pretty sure on that. I'm trying to see if I can get the official numbers on that. But they were nowhere close to competing in the Big 12. And Deion, he had bladder cancer. So, like, that's going to set a team back. And I think maybe you got to give him a little bit of a mulligan. Sorry, 3 games. They were 3-9 this past year. Won 9 games the previous year. They won 1 conference game. And now they're coming into this next season of Colorado football. And I don't know where you're ranking them, but it's not like Colorado did a bang-up job in the transfer portal. I'd love to see what's the rankings for recruiting for this past season. 247 Sports. I'm trying to follow this real quick. Rankings 2025. Let's see if I can get this. Like Colorado, they are ranked in recruiting. The recruiting did okay. They were 4th in the conference. That's not too bad. But transfer portal, where they're there. Transfers. See, I'm going now. I'm scrolling. I'm going to transfer. They were 19. But I don't think people are looking at Colorado next year and saying, "Oh, this is a team that's going to get back to winning 9 or 10 games." I think this looks like a program that's on the decline. So the chickens will come home to roost a little bit on the Deion Sanders experiment at Colorado. 1 9-win season sandwiched between a 4-win season and a 3-win season, and maybe another lackluster season. They just lost Jordan Seaton, who was, the all-world left tackle that they had. Don't be surprised if the buzzers start circling over in Boulder if this thing doesn't get right, man. And don't start thinking that when things start to go poorly and people who already don't like Deion Sanders feel more emboldened to talk about whatever issues are happening behind closed doors, like Christian Fauria. Like I said, he's talked about this before, but he's kind of tiptoed around it here because he's coming off a 3-win season. He feels like I can say it with my full chest, he sucks. Don't think there aren't going to be other people. Christian Fauria says he thinks that there are a lot of alumni who don't want to speak up, but he will. Oh, you will hear more things if Deion Sanders has another 3-win season. This will not be the end of this. So I hope that for Deion's sake and for Colorado's sake, they're able to right the ship, man. That's going to be important. Bob Custer saying Zach's interview with former Colorado Buffaloes tight end Christian Fauria ended up on SI. Fauria on the Zach Gelb show, not holding back his criticism of Deion Sanders. Yeah, shout out to Zach Gelb, man. One of us, right? One of these guys that were Infinity Sports Network guys that found themselves without a job, after December. And Zach, like me, getting up there, saying I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna find somebody to do a show for. He's doing it with 365 Sports. Shout out to them. And he's still making news. Because again, we had a dope squad, man. Infinity Sports Network, we had a bunch of grinders, and Zach is as much of a grinder as I've ever met in this industry. And I always say, and maybe it sounds weird, and maybe it sounds corny, but whatever. It's not the first time I've been accused of being corny at all. But like I always say, like for all the people that I consider like big homies, like Zach is younger than me. I consider him a big homie because he's like a veteran, right? He's a young veteran. He's a young OG. And just his sensibilities and just like his work ethic, his grind, he's an inspiration for me for what he does. So shout out to Zach Gelb, man. That's awesome that he was able to get this interview that's getting picked up everywhere. And he's doing it from a quote unquote like smaller platform or independent platform. And he's still rocking it. He's still Zach Gelb. He's still the man. And this was a awesome interview. And Zach always gets good stuff on Colorado football. He's interviewed Deion Sanders and had phenomenal interviews with Deion Sanders. Again, he was talking to Warren Sapp, and I guess it ended up being a good interview because Warren Sapp started going crazy and left, but he's always getting good stuff from Colorado football. So when I saw that this headline popped up, I was like, oh, of course it was Zach. Of course Zach got that. He has the sensibility to know who to talk to get the inside scoop on what's going on in Colorado. And he's also built that trust with the Colorado Buffs, program to also actually talk to people at Colorado to get the real scoop. Gal was a radio host, but he also has, I know he probably wouldn't want people to say this, and a lot of radio hosts run away from it, but he has journalistic chops. And this was an awesome interview he had with Christian Fauria. Bob, and this is the last comment here. Bob says a head coach better learn everyone's name. Yeah, I think that's fair. I know you got like 100 kids or 80 kids or whatever. Don't Now Caleb Fauria was there when Deion wasn't sick. So yeah, when you come to a school, you should know everybody's name. And I think a lot of coaches will say, oh, I need to learn everybody's first name too. They'll go that far. But you should at the very least learn everybody's last name. Like I remember when I played high school football, and we had a big ass roster too. We had like 60 guys, 70 guys. And so I played freshman football. Shout out to Coach Saki. I haven't done a shout out to Coach Saki maybe since I was 18 or 17 years old. He was a math teacher at St. Francis Prep, and he was a football coach. He was our high school football coach. And he was a great man, very nice man. And he knew everybody's, at least their last name. That's why you start practice. What do? You write your name on that tape. You stick that tape over your helmet. And you walk around all throughout practice and all throughout those games for those first 3-4 weeks, so we can yell at you and we know who we're yelling at on the practice field. And as you do that for 3 or 4 weeks, you quickly get to learn everybody's name, even in a group of that many people. And Kosaki always knew everybody, knew everybody's name and stuff. It's important. But I think that's been the whispers at Colorado, is that Deion seemed to only really care about a few kids because those were his stars. And Deion obviously can't defend himself. Well, he can. And trust me, Deion will. What time is it? 10:15? In 3, 2, 1, you can be seeing a Deion tweet any second. Some kind of quote or Bible verse or something he's gonna clap back at Christian Fauria. That's gonna happen. That's absolutely gonna happen. But to be honest, it's not. He's going to take his energy to do that, and it's well within his right. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, someone said something crazy about you, just say nothing. Like, I think random trolls on social media, sure, yeah. I think somebody that's in the crowd, yeah, you should annoy them or like ignore them. But I'm talking about like if someone who has a prominence speaks down on your name, true or untrue, you have a right to respond. There's people like, oh, why are you responding? It's like he can respond however he wants. Christian Fauria said he's not bright. He can say whatever he wants about Christian Fauria as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. All I care about is what is going to be the end result of this. Is Deion actually going to be able to show that he is a good coach and that he is intensive, that he does love the program, and he is doing all the things needed to put together a winning program in Colorado, or is he not? I don't care about how he claps back, as long as he's fighting on the same playing field. Like, I didn't like him trying to clap back at former kids that transferred, and that seemed like a punching down. Don't punch down. We don't want that. Christian Fauria, former NFL player. You, former NFL player. You, much better player, obviously, in light years better. But he won a national championship in Colorado, so he can talk about Colorado football and say whatever he wants. So, yeah, if you want to clap back at him, go ahead. I want to hear Deion's response. But beyond the response won't matter as much. Because, again, that goes back to what Fauria was saying. That flash and dash stuff, that's all well and good. What are you doing on the field? What did Keontae Scott, Miami superstar safety, say this year? Too much talking on the net, not enough doing on the field. That's all that's going to matter at the end of the day. And I'm curious to see if Colorado, after a miserable season this year, that they were behind the 8 ball. Your coach is basically not around for the entire spring and most of training camp, and he just plops in and tries to coach. Bad things are going to happen to you. That's just the reality. But Deion coached this year, by all accounts, I'm not going to I hope everything's good with his health. It seems like things are going okay. And let's see what he does this year. Because, again, another year like last year, and you're going to hear more about issues happening at the Colorado program. Now I'm going to head out. Now we're going to end this program. So thank you guys for checking out for this edition of 40 Days of 40 Nights. This was a fun one. Again, I'll be back later at 6 p.m. for Night 25. Again, it's Kendall Fridays, which means my brother Kendall Stewart will be joining me later in the show. I'm sure we'll be talking plenty of NBA All-Star stuff. I definitely want to talk to him about all the tanking things and lottery ideas, because me and him, we've gone back and forth about how to fix the lottery for years. So this is probably going to be one of his favorite appearances that he gets to talk about all of this, because it's been a part of the conversation, and also talk about how bad the All-Star game is and who's to blame for that. He's going to have plenty of thoughts on that. I may ask him about what's going on with Colorado and Deion Sanders, what he thinks about these Christian Fauria comments, considering he's been on an NFL staff and knows how that works, and never been on a college staff, but what does he think about what Christian Fauria was saying, I think will be good to know. But again, follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, ActionEJ. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel. New Generation Media is where you'll find me on the channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you can, please give a like to this video. Give me a thumbs up. That greatly helps. And comment after the video is posted. Be, hey, man, that was a great show. Loved it. Make sure you guys watch. All that stuff is definitely appreciative. All episodes get podcasted wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. So make sure that you head over there and make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review if you can. We greatly appreciate it. All right. That's going to do it for us, man. Thank you, guys. I will see you at 6 p.m. Kendall will be joining me later tonight, so that'll be a ton of fun. If you're out on this beginning of Valentine's Day weekend, hope you have fun with your honeys. Hope you get out of it, whatever you get out of it. And if you're not, lock in with your guy. I'll be here. And we'll talk some sports. We'll talk some whatever. And we'll have a good old time, man. CJ Stewart. I'll see you guys in a little bit.